Notre Dame fans, IB Nation, welcome back to the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Today is normally buy so hold today. It is Wednesday. And you know what, Trev? Darn it, it's Wednesday. We're doing a buy so hold. But before we get to the buy so hold, Trev, we are going to talk about spring practice. And not only was it a beautiful, just like in seriousness, like an absolutely gorgeous day in South Bend today. Just absolutely beautiful. Calm wind, great weather, sunny, beautiful day, perfect day to start spring practice. But we also got to see spring practice, and it was the first practice that my guy Trevor Trowbridge has attended. As you can see, he is at his pop's house in Elkhart because he had to a little bit too far of a drive to go from practice all the way back to Indy. But Trev got to see practice today. I was at practice today. Sean Stiers was at practice today. Then we went over to the Marcus Freeman press conference. So before we get to buy so hold, we're going to talk about practice. We're going to talk about some things that Marcus Freeman talked about in his buy so hold. And I know that Marcus Freeman doesn't watch our show. I know he doesn't, and he shouldn't. He has too many things going on. But listening to him talk about why they're doing the spring game after what we talked about yesterday was awesome. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what he said about the quarterback battle, some other things, and then we will get into our buy so hold. So that is what is on the agenda today, Trev. And, man, I'd ask you how you're doing. I already know. You're doing great because you were at practice today. I'm ready to dive into it, man. And as we talk about this practice, Trev, I think the first thing that I want to say to everybody is, like, take a deep breath. There's a lot to like. Do you know why there's a lot to like? Because they've recruited really talented players. It's the first day of spring. There's no pads on. No jobs are being decided today. So if your quarterback of choice had the better day today, doesn't mean that you are that guy's going to start. Or if your chosen guy didn't have a great day in the prep. First of all, we saw 4 periods. They had several periods after we left. But it is still interesting to see certain things, Trev. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about today is just what we saw from the team. And the first thing, just big picture that you and I noticed is, like, after practice, you and I looked at each other like, dude, this team is fast.
Man.
You know what I mean? Like, this team can run. And that's, just running back, receiver, tight end, linebacker, DB. There's some really, really good athletes on this football team. And this is the longest Notre Dame team I've ever seen when you talk about what's coming back. But then, the 2 offensive linemen they added were, one of them is 6'7", 292, and Matty Augustine, and he's the small guy. They added a 6'3" safety in Ethan Long, and of the 2 freshman safeties, he's the small guy. You know what I mean? Like, this is a really long, athletic football team just on the hoof, right? And that's the first thing that it's like, that they're going to look good. It's the first day of practice. They're Notre Dame scholarship players, but it's more of what pops at you. And that was really fun to see today. And that just jumped at you, just going through warm-ups and going through the special teams drills and then going through individual. You're like, yeah, this team is long and fast, man.
It was eye-opening, Brian. It was one of those. That was the first thing that I noticed. And the first thing that we saw when we got in there were just stretches. But you can tell, when somebody's going through stretches and they're going through the different warm-ups and they're running through the line, you can tell when people have a little bit of giddy up to them. And then once they broke off into individual period, you can tell. And there's a good amount of players on this team with a really quick first step. They're very long. That was one thing that I noticed. Man, it was a fun day. Definitely a fun day. And we didn't even get to see that much, to be honest with you. I was obviously left wanting more, but I could have stayed for 3 days straight and I would have still been content. But yeah. But for me,
they probably would have arrested you if you tried to stay in there for 3 days straight. But I get the desire. I get the desire. I'm with you.
Yeah. Yep.
But
very fast. Very fast.
So somebody asked about energy in the room. It's practice. You don't see guys coming out like woohoo, and the first thing they do is stretch, which is kind of a calming period. I will say this: there definitely was a sense of urgency that we saw today, just kind of getting from drill to drill and things along those lines. I would say there was definitely a pep in their step, but that's almost always the case. I want to see if there's that same pep in their step when we get to like practice 9. That's why I say I've joked about this like in fall camp, Trev. This is the emotional roller coaster every coach in America goes through during fall camp, and it's similar in spring. Is that the first few days you're like, dude, we are really good. Everybody's got great energy, and we're going to beat a lot of people this year. Then like middle of fall camp comes, and everybody's got camp legs, and you're like, we might not win a game. You know what I mean? And then as you get close to the season, you kind of settle in with wherever your team is going to be. That's sort of where every team is. If you don't think your guys look athletic and they're not happy to be out there in day one, you've got a major problem. Major problem. And Notre Dame's look how you'd like them to look. Nothing like special, not like, wow, like there's a special intensity about this team. But I didn't expect to see that. That's just it's first day of practice. They're getting out there. Lot of running around, lot of talking amongst players. I mean, you could hear the communication from coach to player and player to coach, like during the special teams drills. It was a good spirited session, but again, we saw no 1-on-1s, no 7-on-7, no team drills, no competitive things going against each other outside of guys holding bags and things like that during the special teams period. So there's not a whole lot you can tell from that, but you can see athletically. I thought the offensive linemen are massive, but it's a cleaner massive. When you see like Charles Jagasaw and Sullivan Absher, you see guys that are still just huge human beings. But like Sullivan, his frame kind of used to go like mine. It's like, chest and then stomach. And then, but now he's just more like chest is out, stomach is in. He's just a big old boy. You can tell he's starting to kind of trim some of that baby fat off of him, which a lot of young linemen have their first year or two. Jagasaw got rid of some of that little bit of extra fluff around the waist, and I thought they moved well as a group. There was a lot of things that impressed me there. We'll dive into that, but no, they look. I mean, they look like they're in shape. They look fast. They look long, and they look like they were ready to be out there. So we're going to get into some specifics here next, but I did want to kind of get into just the overall feel and just kind of see how you felt. Like just from your practice overall, Trev. Like, what were some things as you're out there, just like, we talked about long and fast. Was anything else that just kind of popped out to you? It's like sometimes for me, I feel like I take certain things maybe for granted because we're always there. But anything else kind of pop out to you, whether from coaching, players, overall atmosphere, anything like that from what we saw today?
Everything was urgent. Everybody looked pretty focused too. And I know sometimes it's one of the first nicer days of the year. I don't know what the weather's like consistently up in South Bend, probably relatively similar to what it's like down in Indy. But it's one of those for me where I look at and I start paying attention to who's locked in, who's focused, because it's easy to be the guy. It's like, all right, first time back in at least a helmet and back in this facility with the team since prepping for the national championship game. Or it's also easy to be, oh man, spring, here we go, or focus from a stance of, all right, like for some players, it's their first time practicing. Is it like Devontae Smith, Jared Dawson? It's their first time practicing in this setting as the whole team. They did winter workouts, running, lifting, things like that. Then obviously the true freshmen, everything is, you're wide-eyed, everything's new, this is it. But everybody seemed really focused today. Everybody moved everywhere with a purpose. And so on top of the things that you added, everything was done with a sense of urgency and a high level of focus today. It was awesome to see.
It was funny kind of talking to Trevor after practice. Like there's walk-ons at Notre Dame that you're like, dude, that guy's a good football player. You know what I mean? Like you're watching Xavier Southall play, but a guy that it was funny to listen to because like, dude, because we were just talking about him, he's like, dude, almost like, hey, I get what you're talking about. Like Leo Scheidler's really good. You know what I mean? Like he's a really good football player, man. You saw a little bit of that today too, man. Even with the exception of one position, like even the walk-ons are good football players. I mean, I say go down and watch. It's Robbie Wallen and Max Anderson. They were high school teammates from Minnesota. Go watch them go through drills and be like, I think that guy could play in the MAC. You know what I mean? Like that guy's a good football player. There's just quality athletes all around the field, man. It really is. It really is fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an eye-opening day for me. One of my buddies always talked about, you never really understand the speed of the game, honestly, until you look at it up close and you see it up close. I've been to games inside of Notre Dame Stadium. Obviously, I've been watching them on TV for as long as I can remember, but being that close, he said that, he watched college basketball a lot, but then there was a game where he sat courtside and watched a game, and seeing it up that close, it's like you don't realize how long and how fast and how quick everybody is at that level. And that I got some of that today of just, man, like you start to see people's vertical quickness and their lateral quickness and how fast their first step is. So, I mean, remove the analyst part for a second. The fan part, it was just awesome to see. I'm almost 28 years old. There's not a whole lot of firsts that I get with Notre Dame football because it's been a part of my life for so long. So today was really cool.
Well, let's dive into some of the specifics of today's practice, Trev, and we'll begin with quarterback. I mean, that's obviously where everybody is interested in seeing, and so we'll dive into that. Let's talk about quarterback for a little bit because we got the chance to see kids throw. We didn't see them making any reads. We didn't see them, basically it's just drop back throwing drills. They go out there. While everybody else is doing special teams, they're out on the field just kind of warming up, doing their typical warm-up drills of throwing diagonally, throwing to each other, things like that. And we got to see them go through some handoff type things and throwing to the backs out of the backfield while the receivers are going through their drills. And then we got to see them do routes on air where it's 2 to 4 quarterbacks going at a time. And then they're throwing to 2 to 4 receivers at a time. And depending on what space you're in, you're throwing to a specific receiver. So we got to see that. So we got to see him throw. And so all we can evaluate today is how they looked throwing the football. And so keep that in mind. We're not talking about, boy, this guy showed a great job, going through his progressions. This guy answered this question about how he handles the pocket or whatever. It just, this young guy, great job reading the defense. It's like, where you're throwing the football. So keep that in mind. I want to pump the brakes first, Trev, because what we're about to talk about is going to be really exciting because you and I were talking about it. And I'm like, full disclosure, we're walking over the press conference. Trev will tell you, I'm calling Sean Davis. I'm like, hey, bro. I'm calling Vince. Knowing he's in school. Hey, man. You watch the quarterbacks today, Trev, and you just you're like, yeah, Notre Dame's going to be good. They're going to be fine at quarterback because there's, first and foremost, there's talent in that room. There is some really impressive arm talent in that room, Trevor. Just as a group, first of all, giving love to everybody. I don't remember, and I'm sure there was, I didn't see a ball hit the ground today during routes on air. I saw one. I saw one ball hit the ground today on routes on air. A, the balls were just on point. And B, receivers were catching everything. I think I saw one miss today. That's it. This is an impressive group of guys. A really impressive group of guys. They can spin it.
100%. I mean, it validated why they didn't go to the portal. Marcus Freeman talked about how, when the offensive staff alongside himself sat down and looked at the almost state of the union of the quarterback room, it's like, hey, where are we at? Do we need to go and dive into the portal and bring somebody else in, whether it be to start or for a safety net? And you can kind of evaluate the room and just looking at the pure arm talent in the room today. No, they're all right. They're all right. And I know we're going to talk a lot this offseason and throughout the spring and the summer and fall camp about the 3 guys going in the battle. Blake Hebert, dude, that guy has a rope, man.
He's your 4 or 5, yeah.
Man. Yeah, it's a loaded room.
It is. It's as far as just arm talent, it's a really talented room. So let's kind of get into the players we saw. We're going to kind of go from who was most impressive and then just kind of work our way down. I thought the guy that looked the best, Trev, and that was a lot of the focus that I had today was on obviously just watching the quarterbacks and the offensive skill positions. And the guy that I was really impressed with today, more than any, and I thought the first 2 guys I'm going to talk about looked really good today. But I thought Kenny Minchie had an excellent practice for what we saw. And it begins with, we'll talk about how he threw here in a second. But the big thing is Kenny just was carrying himself differently. And if you've been doing this long enough, if you played the position and you've coached the position and you've evaluated the position, which I have, there's just certain things you look for from a body language standpoint. And I've said in the past, Kenny had very much there's been questions about like how bad does he, not that he loves football, but like how bad do you want it? Like how great do you, what are you willing to do to be great? Do you have that demeanor, that attitude to be a great quarterback? And I'm like, maybe he doesn't have that, but he's young, and let's see how he does. You could just see Kenny carrying himself today. That was the most confident I've seen him, just how he presents himself, just how he's going from drill to drill, taking snaps, just avoiding pressure during the one drill they were doing, like sidestepping a bag and then stepping and throwing, and then just watching the ball come out of his hand with conviction. I mean, his ball placement today, again, he's a Notre Dame quarterback that doesn't have pads on, not facing the defense, so that's true for all these guys. But Trev, I mean, he was just on the money. He was putting the ball where he wanted to, whether it was hitting the back shoulder on a slant, whether there was a go ball that he threw. I mean, and he just teardropped it like boom, just like that, just right over the top. And the receiver made it look even worse because the receiver, as he looked back, leaned inside. If he doesn't lean inside with that first step, that ball hits right here. The arm speed has always been really good. But you could see it today, Trev, and I know that you watched a lot of defense, but you're a quarterback. You got your eyes down there a little bit. The ball was just exploding out of Kenny's hand today. Like, this is what we hoped. This is what I hoped I'd see from Kenny Minchie in day one, of a guy who we're hoping really pushes the other quarterbacks and is legitimately competing for this quarterback job, just through individual. Don't know what they did in team and all that other stuff when we left, but just what we saw today. He threw the ball, I thought, better. And now the next guy I'm going to talk about threw it really well too. But like, if you're talking about like, hey, we've got to evaluate and rank them, it was an easy decision for me today. Kenny looked really good, and he was throwing with conviction. I mean, just snapping it off, throwing at velocity, but not throwing velocity where he's like, muscling it up, trying to throw 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. I mean, just like wham, just the ball's coming out with, his core was there. You could see his hips kind of leading him through the throwing zone, just bringing his arm down. So the nose of the ball was coming right down on receivers, snapping it off, just throwing with conviction. And then the arm talent takes over. He was really sharp today in practice. I was really impressed with what I saw. And you can start to see his body's getting reshaped a little bit. He's starting to look like a young man now instead of a teenage boy. He's starting to look like a, third-year guy that's been in the weight room a little bit, and I think that's helping him a little bit too, but really impressed with what I saw from Kenny today. He had the most impressive open practice period for me.
Yeah, from what I saw, Kenny was really sharp today. Like Brian said, I was keeping an eye on the defensive side because at the end of the day, me, Brian, and Sean are only three people, and there's a lot of different things that are going on. But I definitely snuck some peeks over at the quarterback room.
In a short period of time, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, in a very short period of time. And I will say this, Kenny was letting it go today in a good way. I mean, it was very precise. It was very in rhythm. He was, everything looked connected. There was a good flow with everything that he was doing. Ball was coming out really well today. And you could tell it was one of those to where if we saw a 1-on-1, if we saw a 7-on-7, Kenny would have had a day today. You can just kind of tell. Brian, you get it. After playing it, after coaching it, you just have days where hey, it's time to deal. Kenny would have had himself a day today. That is 100% sure.
I mean, you could even see it in some of the agility drills they were doing today. He just looked smooth, and his feet were quick, and he was able to set his feet and get the ball out. Like, this was one of those days where Kenny was feeling it. But, like, this is why I graded Kenny as a top 100 player coming out. This is what you saw on film in high school. Like, this is the guy with the elite arm talent, with the kind of that little quiet swagger that's really athletic. Marcus Freeman made an interesting comment in response to a question that I asked him, about the quarterback position. But he said, Kenny might disagree with me on this, but none of these guys run like Riley runs, but you can see that athleticism today. And to hear Marcus Freeman say that, you could clearly hear that there's been some talk about, Kenny starting to sound more confident in how he's carrying himself. But he had a really good day today. Really good day today. The other guy, the next guy right behind him to me was CJ Carr. And I said this, there were 3 throws that I thought CJ just wasn't on with today. And that's why he fell behind Kenny Minchie. That's how this quarterback battle is going to be. You could have a great day, but have 3 throws that aren't on target, and you didn't have the best day. That's the reality. As far as when I say best day, it's what we saw. But see, a lot of things that we said about Kenny, I'm going to say about CJ. Just carrying himself different. Last year you could see CJ was kind of like He wouldn't jump into a drill unless he was called, because he wasn't always supposed to be in a drill, because, they were only going 3 quarterbacks and he was the number 4. And there wasn't sort of that same kind of gung-ho. And today CJ was that. Now, once he got in there, CJ always throws a beautiful football, and we saw that today. Well, feet were moving really well today, snapping the ball off, ball placement for the most part. He missed a go ball. He missed he threw a little swing route to a back a little behind him, and then he was a little short on a corner route. Outside of that, I thought CJ was just really precise today. Throwing with the ball. The one thing that CJ does better than the other quarterbacks is the consistency of the nose of his football. He throws a incredibly catchable throw. But what you saw today, Trev, at least I'm curious if you actually saw this. What you could see today, if you were paying attention, is this. I think there's this notion that CJ is he's really smart and he's really accurate, and it's described in a way almost like he's got to be that way to overcome, like, not having big time tools. And I've always felt that's just not accurate at all. CJ has a very strong arm. Does he have a Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes arm? No, he doesn't. Can that kid throw football all over the place and throw impressively? Absolutely. And you saw that today. Ball was jumping out of his hand. He's got a really compact, quick release, throwing with confidence, bringing that shoulder down so the ball wasn't sailing, wasn't dry. It's that flat plane he throws with is really impressive. I thought CJ had a really, really good day today.
CJ was another quarterback today for me that was extremely clean. Throwing was clean, as it always is. Footwork was good, as it always was. To me, the little bit of snippets that I saw from CJ Carr is what I like to see, especially being the younger guy in the room. I know Blake Hebert's in there, but you kind of want to see who's going to step up and take charge and be more of a vocal leader. CJ was always one of the first quarterbacks out there, one of the first offensive players out there, dapping people up when people were getting lined up for drills. He was out there patting people on the head and doing some of those little things as well. Not that the other quarterbacks weren't. I just noticed it from CJ, because there are times when the younger or youngest person in that competition is just kind of like, I'm going to just go out and let, ball do the talking. And it's like, well, quarterback, a little bit of a different animal. Kind of wanted to evaluate that from all the quarterbacks today, and I thought CJ did a really good job of doing that this morning, for sure.
The two young guys are the ones that I think a lot of us are most intrigued by. How are they going to step up and push? And for the first 4 periods of the spring, I thought they were both very impressive. Steve Angeli was Steve Angeli. Solid first day from what we saw. Steve has always been this way, Trev, where early in practice, Steve is erratic. He just is. It's almost always the case. He's a guy that he has a longer throwing motion. You saw that today. You made a comment to me about that after practice. He has a much longer throwing motion. And sometimes it can take you some time to kind of get into the rhythm where your release point is similar. You're able to really get that ball out the way that you need to. And he's always been that way. He starts off, he never looks great in routes on air, and then he'll get better as you get later into practice. But he was high a lot, and you can see a very inconsistent sort of the nose of the football is very inconsistent coming out of his hand a little bit today. But also good footwork. When he was right, he threw a really nice ball. Steve's got some tools, but there's just he may be the best quarterback on the team when you take all the intangibles and all those. He may end up winning the job, but there's a very clear difference in how the ball comes out of his hand compared to how it comes out of the other. And really the other 3. I mean, if you talk about the 4 scholarship kids, because Blake Hebert's got a stronger arm than Steve Angeli and a faster release than Steve Angeli, and he's got the best body. Like frame 6'2 plus 220. I mean, he looks like the oldest quarterback. I mean, if you didn't know anything about Notre Dame, you're just some NFL scout that came to Notre Dame. You looked at the roster and you see the heights and weights, but there's no class in there. You'd look at Blake Hebert and be like, "Is that your senior?" I mean, just because he's a big kid, and ball flies out of his hand, really powerful, super fast release. Too fast, in my opinion, because I think He's inconsistent. His release point is very inconsistent because I think he almost goes too fast through the throwing zone. Like he rushes a little bit too much. And he's got to clean up his footwork. But when that kid steps and throws and it's right, that ball looks really nice coming out of his hand. And he's a very, very impressive kid. But he's also like, he looks like a drop back pocket quarterback, just his body type. But he's got really nice feet. And we know he can run from high school film, but you can just see the athleticism there. But I thought they all had a solid day. They all showed some really good things. And you just overall, you look at this room and you're like, yeah, there's talent there. It's a talented football team. It's a very talented football team. And, it's a very talented room. It's a very talented room. And you just kind of feel like, okay, I think they're going to be all right. I think they're going to be all right. Marcus Freeman, after the practice, they talked about, somebody asked him about the timeline. And he's like, I have no timeline. It's when somebody shows me and tells me that they're the quarterback. And that's basically what he said. And he's very adamant, I'm not going to rush this decision, which I was happy to hear, because it also means you could make that decision sooner if somebody's just like, you're 2 weeks, you're after your 2 weeks of spring practice, you're getting to that April 5th, practice, and you're getting closer to that April 12th spring game, and you're just like, guys, the same story's been true every day. It's this guy. It's this guy. It's this guy every day. Maybe then you can make the decision sooner, but I still think no matter what, I'd be surprised if they announced anything this spring. I think we're going to see a starting quarterback battle, and I think today was evidence of that. I mean, it's going to be hard for any of these three kids to separate from the others in 10 to 15 practices. It's going to be real tough because there's a lot of talent in that room, So we're looking forward to seeing that. So let's move over to running back, Trev. Didn't watch a ton of running back today. There's certain positions I don't watch a lot of on day one. I don't watch a lot of the offensive line on day one because I don't really care what offensive linemen do for the most part without pads on. Same with the D-line, although Trev watched some of the D-line. Running back's another one because really it's just like when you're watching running backs, it's like, okay, how do they look athletically? And I'll tell you this, Jeremiah Love looked exactly like you'd expect Jeremiah Love to look. He had a really impressive one-handed catch. Jadarian Price looked exactly like he looked last year, really explosive, built like a tank. So that was kind of there. I think Aeneas Williams looked like his weight was listed, I think, the same or maybe slightly down from what was in the fall, but he looks thicker in the upper body. I thought Aeneas did, and he looked at I knew he changed his number, but it was still different seeing him wear number 22. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Aeneas. But he looked good, caught the ball really well, looked quick. Keidron Young is a very unique player. He's listed at 5'11", 235. He looks every bit of 235. That is an athletic kid. And he's got good hands. You saw that today. I mean, he's lined up. He ran a hitch route, snapped it 1-2, bam, turned back to the court. I'm like, dude, some of the receivers don't run hitch routes that well. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, freshman receivers, watch number 21 right now run this hitch route. This is how you're supposed to do it, Catches the ball, turns it up, get upfield. And by the way, I love Jawan Sider's energy. Like at practice. Like, dude's my age, and he was making me tired watching him at practice today. It's just like, dude has a lot of energy at practice, a lot of coaching, which is good because Dylan McCullough was like that too. Like Dylan wasn't quite as like amped up. Dylan was always kind of cool and chill, but like always coaching, always talking, always instructing something to his players. And that's a lot like how Jawan Sider was today. So I loved the energy that he showed. That's a super talented room. Loved what I saw from Jabron Payne. He was making really explosive cuts, really quick, sudden cuts. He looked great. He looked like he's back to good strength. So a great room looked even better because we haven't talked a lot about Jabron because you just never know how a running back is going to recover from a knee injury, Trev. But you saw Jabron Payne today. You're like, yep, he's 100% and not 100% healthy because like 100% healthy means you're just like, okay, you've healed. But are you back to full strength? That means you're running as fast, you're cutting as well, you're also mentally as confident. He did not look if you didn't know he had a knee injury, you wouldn't have been like, hey, why is that guy favoring his knee? You didn't see any of that from Jabron today. He caught the ball very well. And I got to tell you, Nolan James is going to be a really good football player. That's an athletic dude. Like he can scoot, and he looked so comfortable working out of the slot today. Like seriously, the way that Nolan James ran routes and caught the football today, if they ever get to a position where there's a massive injuries in the 19 slots that they currently have on the roster, because it's like half their roster slots, and they need another slot, it's like, hey, Nolan, bro, go line up. I mean, he did that as a sophomore, but that kid, that's an athlete. Like, there's a lot of people say he wasn't ranked real high, and how athletic is he? If you had any questions about Nolan James' athleticism, that should have got answered today. Now, what kind of running back is he going to be in college? No clue. You can't evaluate a running back when they don't have pads on. It's like, I thought, oh, he's got to be a great offensive lineman. Based on what? What I saw in practice. Did he have pads on? No, he didn't. Then you don't know anything about that guy. It's like saying I'm evaluating a receiver's toughness based on what I saw at a 7-on-7 tournament. Like, you know nothing about his toughness. Everybody's got toughness when you know you can't get hit. You know, it's like running your mouth when there's like a fence between you. And then all of a sudden that fence gets open and you're like, this guy can come at me now. You know what I mean? Like, you have no idea. But athletically, if you had any questions about where Nolan James was as far as speed and burst and foot quickness and pass catching ability, dude has it. Now you see why I ranked him so high, Trev. Now you see why I was like, when they kind of moved on from the other two running backs, now you see why I was like, hey, this is a kid they need to look at. And I'll be honest, I actually reached out to some people that I knew with the program and said, hey, are you guys looking at this kid? Because if they weren't, I was going to tell them to. And they said that they were. I don't do that very often, Trev. Like, I maybe once a cycle, I'll say, hey, like, I think you guys need to look at this kid. I was getting ready to do that, but I should have known that Dylan McCullough was already on it. You know what I mean? Like, he was already on it. And then, of course, a couple weeks later, he's basically in the class. Or he wasn't in the class, but like, he would have been offered, and this was right before he got offered and all that. So this young man can flat out play. This is such a loaded running back room. Whether it's Keidron Young or Jabron Payne or Nolan James, two of those three are going to be your 5 and your 6. I just don't see how there's anyone else in college football that's got a room this deep. Just athletically, like, this is a special group. This is an absolutely loaded group. Because Jeremiah Love, you watch him, Trev, and you're like, he's a freak. But he doesn't stand out so much greater than the other backs. And not because he's not a freak. It's just because the rest of them are pretty freaky too. Like, when you have a guy like Jeremiah Love, you think when you watch him play, like, I remember when I was first started covering the team, and it was like Michael Floyd was a receiver. There was Michael Floyd and then everybody else a receiver. And there just was a very clear difference between him. Like, you're like NFL player, solid college football player, everybody else. When you watch these running backs, you're like NFL player, NFL player, NFL player, NFL. It's just, they're an absolutely loaded group, absolutely loaded group. And I've never seen a depth chart like this at Notre Dame at running back. I mean, you lost Devin Ford from last year's group, and you replaced him with Jabron Payne and Nolan James. Like, Trev, like, honestly, in past years, like, not that long ago, Nolan James has come to Notre Dame, and he's battling for the number 2 job right now. Aeneas Williams and Keidron Young are battling for the starting job right now. Yeah. Right now, they're kind of jockeying for 3 to 5. Mm-hmm. You know, it's an impressive group of athletes. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, the running back room is insanely deep. And I love what you said, too, about Jeremiah Love. We know him as freaky because we know number 4 on offense in the gold helmet and the blue jersey is just, he's like that. But then you go and you start looking at 24 and now 22 and 21 and 23. I mean, man, that room is fun. That room is special. I can't wait to watch him progress throughout the spring. I really can't. It's going to be awesome.
And just so you guys, this isn't meant to say like somehow Jeremiah Love's not a freak. He is. It's just, you get excited about a room where the freak isn't like exceptionally different than everybody else in the room.
He's not alone.
Right. Like if Jalen Smith was on this year's football team, you'd be like, that's a freak right there. But there wouldn't be this enormous gap where it's like him and then like Joe Schmidt and Dan Fox. And, you know, it's like him, but then these other dudes are like, yeah, that's a first round pick too. And that's the thing is like, he stands out, but it's like, it's not to the degree where it's like, he's just in a different universe than everybody else in the room. Let's talk a little bit about wide receiver, Trev. That's another position that I paid a lot of attention to today. Not a surprise. We saw a lot from Jaden Greathouse today, being the first guy out there. There was also some new drills that I saw today that we saw a lot of the same drills working on the square cone drill, which I did as a receivers coach too. I think it's a great drill. Just working on getting guys to cut different ways of catching the ball, but they were also working on their speed cuts a lot today, which is an area where they definitely need to work on and just attacking the football. He was really focusing on coming back to the ball, really really attacking the football, stepping to the football, which I was very encouraged to see. And then you saw it kind of play out that way in practice. I didn't see a drop. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't one because I didn't watch every single rep, but I didn't see any drops in day one, and you usually saw that. And there was a couple of times the freshmen weren't sure what they were doing, which is to be expected. But overall, Trev, athletic group, Jaden Greathouse looked good. Micah Gilbert went through special teams, and then we didn't see him in individual drills. I don't know what that means. I don't know. I don't want to comment on a potential anything because, I don't want to get in trouble. But so I didn't get to see him go through drills today. KK Smith looked good. He was athletic. He was smooth. It was good to see Jordan Faison actually out there, not just out there like he was last year, but like going through drills with his helmet on.
Yeah.
He definitely got his burst back. Like he just, from the moment of the A&M game, Trev, he just never, even like against Georgia and against Indiana, like he was good, but he just didn't have that same explosiveness that we saw like a spring and as a freshman because of he was never fully healthy after getting hurt against A&M. He looked healthy. Now, of course, he's in the middle of lacrosse season, so he should be in great shape, but it was good to see Jordan Faison just really just looking explosive. I think those guys all look like we expect them to look. Greathouse looked like you expect Greathouse to look in a day one. Faison did. Will Pauling, definitely not 100%. I mean, he was always last in drills, intentionally so. That's what they do with a guy who's not full participation. He'll always go last, so there's not the same sort of speed because like a lot of times they do these things rapid fire, and if you're going 3/4 speed, that next guy's going to kind of you might bump into each other. He's definitely got his way back. He catches the ball really nicely, though. I did like how he catches the ball. I want to talk about a couple young guys. I want to talk about Cam Williams. This is not meant to be read into too much, but this is the best I've ever seen Cam Williams look in going through drills. And not athletically. Cam Williams looked like he knew what he was doing today. I talked about this last year. You can go back and watch old shows, read old practice reports. I'm like, Cam wasn't sure he was doing. Like he was taking extra steps. He was kind of looking around. He didn't always look comfortable with what he's being asked to do. Today he did. And you can see in the drills, like he's just snapping his hips off. He's working downhill. He's catching the ball. Well, he would always drop 2-3 balls. I'm not talking about in one-on-ones. I'm talking about in drills. Cam would always drop a couple passes because you could tell the last thing he was thinking of was catching the football. He was still thinking of, okay, what step am I breaking here? Am I breaking off that foot? Am I breaking off that foot? Am I supposed to work at a 45? Am I supposed to work at a 90? Like, I'm not quite sure what angle I'm supposed to kind of break this off at. Today, he was snapping in and out of drill. Still, I mean, you could tell there's still definitely technical work that is needed with him, but he looked so much more comfortable today. And when a guy like him is more comfortable, what's going to follow? He looked more explosive athletically. So it was very good to see that. Catching the ball really clean today. He looked good. I'm not saying that equals he's going to be a breakout star. I'm just saying today, day one, he looked like that's the Cam Williams that we hoped that we would see. Logan Saldate still has a little bit to clean up with his top ends that at times gets him choppy, but when he knows what he's doing, I love the agility that he has. He's a little longer maybe than I thought he was going to be, maybe an inch taller than I thought he was going to be. I thought Logan looked really sharp today, catches the ball well. He's just, you could still kind of come along a little bit with some of the technical things, just not quite as consistent with some of the technical things, which he's going to have to clean up, but love the athleticism, love the hands. Scrap Richardson looked like a quarterback on his first day of practice at wide receiver. There were a couple times you could see the athleticism, but he's got a long ways to go. Good athlete. Jerome Bettis Jr. caught the ball well today. Different type of athlete than the other guys. The guy that I was super impressed by today, Trev, was Elijah Burris. So I saw Elijah last summer at Irish Invasion, and I love Elijah's film, and I think he's a really good player. I saw him last summer. And I saw really good foot quickness and solid speed, and he caught the ball really well. Today, I saw an Elijah Burst that was about 10 pounds heavier, and you could just see it. You could see it up here. You could see it here. Like the strength program has been good for him so far. He had two times in the drills where he had to kind of start over because he wasn't doing it right. There's one time in routes on there he took off when he wasn't supposed to, and so there's those day one freshman mistakes that like I made my first day of fall camp as a freshman, as a quarterback, and then my 5 days later when I moved to receiver, I made those same mistakes. It happens. But when Elijah knew what he was doing, and that was the majority of the time, he's impressive. Like he looks like he belongs in that room. Really quick, really good, like burst, like his short area speed. We didn't see a lot of these guys like just turn it loose, like they're just running full speed go routes. But he comes off the ball really quick and gets out of his breaks really quick and catches the ball well. He did not look like a freshman who was uncomfortable playing college football today. He looked like a freshman at times that wasn't sure what he was supposed to do, but when he lines up and goes, he looks like he can play. So just overall, Trev, really impressed with the athletic skill of this room. And that's without seeing Micah Gilbert go through drills. That's without not having Malachi Fields, without having a healthy Will Pauling. That room looked athletic, definitely athletic. Not as big as it's going to look when 6'4" Malachi Fields shows up, but and when 6'2", 205 Micah Gilbert's in there, but a lot of quickness, a lot of really good ball skills today. And there weren't a lot of balls, and you guys will see this. I don't know what other people, like if anybody else put receiver videos out there. I'm going to put some receiver stuff out there a little bit on a video after we're done. But what I saw today too, Trev, is I didn't see a lot of body catching today, unless it was a ball that was like here, and that's when you kind of have to body it. You don't go like this. You got to kind of here or here, depending on where the ball is. But you could see with him, like this group, there's a lot of guys that are confident attacking the football with their hands. Some guys that weren't last year, which tells me, A, they're more confident themselves. That tells me also that this has been a point of emphasis with Mike Brown, is attack the foot. And you could see him talking like attack the football. And then you saw them do that. So I was very pleased with what I saw from the receivers today.
Yeah, at the start of the show, we talked a lot about the sense of urgency. I thought the receivers played with a really good sense of urgency today. You're starting to see what the potential ceiling is of this room. I also thought Cam Williams had a pretty good day today from what I saw. Like I said, I spent a lot of time watching the defense, but in the snippets that I saw, because the wide receivers were running their individual drills right down in front of me. And from what I did see, it was very, very promising. And to your point, that was before Malachi Fields was there, before Will Pauling was completely healthy. Micah Gilbert wasn't going through drills. Jordan Faison was there. He was present. We're going to touch on some of the things about Jordan Faison too that Marcus Freeman brought up in his post-game or in his post-practice press conference as well. But the room as a whole, very promising to see what they had.
Yeah. Didn't pay a lot of attention to the tight ends today other than Eli Raridon. Again, I can't watch everybody, and tight end's one of those positions I don't care as much about if they don't have pads on. But I did a lot. Eli Raridon looks like he's moving faster than he did last spring and in the fall. He just looks like he's maybe getting a little bit of that juice back that maybe had kind of get sapped out a little bit as he was recovering from the 2 knee injuries. But he looked explosive from what I can tell. Just real quick about the offensive line. Again, I don't put a lot of stock in what I see in the offensive line today on days where they don't have pads on. Just a couple quick observations. Devin Houston is working with the offensive line, and he has a new number. He's number 52. I did see Sullivan Absher taking some snaps. I got to go back through my video again and just kind of see again who else was taking snaps today. Matty Augustine, as I mentioned earlier, he's a pretty athletic kid for his size. Owen Strebig is a ginormous human being. I mean, he's a really tall, big kid. I thought Jagasaw moved pretty well today. I thought Sullivan Absher moved pretty well today. I thought I was worried about Gerby Lambert. He gained 11 pounds. He's up to 334. Doesn't look it. I mean, meaning he doesn't look like he got fat. He looks just like he's a monster. I thought he moved really well in drills. It was good to see. Joe Otting moved really well in drills today. It's an impressive looking group size-wise. beyond that, there's not a whole lot to take away from an offensive line practice on day one where there's no pads on. But that's what's all there. Trevor, I want to talk a little bit about the defense. And obviously that was a part where you spent a lot of focus. Defensive tackle, I thought one of the big questions that we had with Jason Onye, he had gained, I think, 17 pounds since last season. What did you see from the defensive tackles today? Obviously with a focus on Jason Onye and some of the newcomers as well. But just overall D tackles and then D ends, Trev, what did you see from today's practice? Obviously, no one-on-ones. They're going through just bag drills, things like that. And you had said earlier also, just so people understand, the defense wasn't as active today as the offense was. There was a lot of, looked like install and just kind of teach some new teaching points. So there was a little bit more standing around at times in this first practice than we saw in offense, which is not a surprise. One team's in their first practice in the system. The other team is going into year two. But just overall observations that you saw today, Trev, starting with the D-line.
Yeah, so the defensive line was it was a lot of focus on technique and kind of getting back into a good rhythm. That was kind of the theme today for the defense as a whole, especially in the secondary, which I'll get to. But Mike Mickens spent a lot of time really coaching up different aspects of, spent a lot of time with the corners specifically. For the defensive line, one of the things that I noticed, they would always go and rotate in pairs because they split out between defensive ends and interior defensive linemen. And for the interior defensive linemen, it was always Donovan Heinisch and Gabe Rubio as a pair, Armel Mukum and Jason Onye as a pair, and then Jared Dawson and Brennan Vernon as a pair. That could have just been how they lined up that day, or that's who their partner was for that day. I don't think that's any inclination on depth chart, or I would not read too much into it.
I would day one depth chart. To Trev's point, it's like, look, you have to start somewhere on day one. Somebody has to be out with the first team. Somebody's got to be out with the second team. It made total sense of this is what the day one depth chart is going to look like. But there's going to be mixing and matching and competition. But I do think it's somewhat like, I don't think it's to be completely ignored. It's just don't read too much into it. Like, this is the first team, this is the second team. Like, but yeah. Anyway, keep going.
And it was it was good to see them back out there. Jason Onye, it was awesome to see him back out there. He handled the more weight well. Typically, especially with interior defensive linemen, you see him bulk up a little bit like that. They might lose a little bit of a step. And that was one thing that Jason Onye had last season, is he had a really quick first step at points throughout the season, especially early on. There were some that thought that he was Notre Dame's best interior defensive lineman. You saw the jump up in weight, and I was curious to see how he handled it. I thought he did well. Gabe Rubio today seemed pretty locked in, pretty focused, and that was pleasing to see because he missed last spring. He wasn't with the team last spring, and so it was good to see him back. Donovan Heinisch, he still looked really quick. The two guys that I wanted to focus on, one, Armel Mukum looked like he had a pretty good day. Again, no one-on-ones. It's hard to evaluate defensive linemen in drills like this because they're not hitting anybody. They're not hitting anything. And then Jared Dawson, again, quick hands, quick first step. They did a lot of drills with pads. Jared Dawson stood out because he was pretty quick off of it. I didn't get to see a whole lot of Elijah Hughes. I know he was in there going through drills. He was the D line where they were going through drills. They were like on the opposite end of where we were all sitting. So some of it was just hard to see him. But
I saw him a little bit, Trev, because I was down on the field. And so I could kind of move a little bit further down from where you guys up top are much more confined. He's pretty quick. He's a pretty quick athlete. He's got really fast hands. I did notice. I actually, sometimes it's just by luck, you look over there and he happens to be a guy going through it. But I thought he had really fast hands and showed me some really impressive quickness. Outside of that, I didn't see him a ton, but I did notice that is something that popped. And to your point about how well Rubio and Onye moved, I was concerned about that because Rubio's up to almost 320 now. And Onye's almost 310 now. He's 291 last year. He was listed at 291. Now he's like, I think, what is it, like 308?
Yep.
I was like, okay, that means he's either had a monster offseason in the weight room or he's had a monster offseason ordering Papa John's. It's going to be one of them two. You know what I mean? And so to see them move as well as they did was encouraging. Because, Onye didn't look a lot bigger. And when 17 pounds of muscle is added, you notice it a little bit for a guy that big. If 17 pounds of bad weight is added, you notice it right away. Like, okay,
Yeah.
that guy's put on some bad weight. I didn't see that from him. So to see him move the way he did, I thought was encouraging. Very encouraging. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The edge rushers I got to see a little bit of. They like I said, they were separated when they were going through their individual drills. Some of the things that I did notice, Bryce Young looks like he got a little stronger, little bit quicker of a first step, little bit more of a pop when he hit some of those pads, which was really, really promising. So he looked pretty good. And then some of the other players just kind of, for some of them, it was just picking up where they left off. You know, you can't evaluate everybody. And in the limited time that we saw today, and people aren't going to go from here to here from what we had seen previously. But Josh Burnham looked like he had a solid day. Junior Tuialamaka looked like he had a solid day as well. Logan Thomas is still very fast. He's still really long. Still has a quick first step. But Bryce Young on the edge is somebody that also stood out to me today because he was noticeably a little bit stronger, a little bit quicker, a little bit more clarity to where it was starting to pop a little bit. It's like, okay, you can kind of start seeing things come around a little bit for him as well.
Linebacker, and Drake was Drake. He looked good, big, strong, moved very well. Jaden Osbury looked really, really clean and athletic today. And he's a guy that added some weight, and you could see it physically. You could see the good weight. I thought he still moved really well. Jalen Sneed's the guy that I was curious about, Trev, because he gained over 10 pounds, and he's up to 232 now on the Notre Dame depth chart. How did you think he looked today moving around? Because I know that was a thing that you and I both were looking for. Is like, look, not everybody can put on 10 pounds and remain as athletic as they were before. What did you see from Jalen today as he was working through drills and doing different things?
He was still very fluid. It didn't look like that he lost a step with the added weight. He was still really quick laterally. He still had a really good first step, but you could see where the strength came into play. You know, the first drill that they did, they had like the tackling dummy in front of them. You go, you press it up, shut it off of you, and then you go pursuit drill. Jalen Sneed still looked every bit as quick as what he was, but a little bit more of a pop. There's a little bit more juice behind it. But he was able to play with that weight really well. To your point, Drake was still Drake. Jaden Osbury was still very, very fluid. Another guy that stood out to me with the linebackers, Kingston looks a bit stronger as well. And that could just be the progression. Same thing with Bryce Young, that freshman to sophomore year. Right. But Kingston also looked a step quicker. Yeah, I know towards the end of the last season, he was coming back from the knee injury. Looks like he's gotten some of that back.
He was also 240 plus last year, and he's now listed at 231. He's still a big kid, but you could just see a kid who's really emphasized reshaping his body a little bit. And I think that played into he's always been a really kind of twitchy kid, but I thought his movement was really really clean, really fluid. He looked like a guy that had shed a couple pounds and is now more muscular than he was, just kind of big. He looks so much different though without the hair. Much different.
I was just gonna say, I wonder how much of that weight going from 240 plus to 231 was the hair.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, like half of that's hair. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah,
but he looked really good. A little bit extra pop with him today in drills, and I know they've talked about him before. This is my first time seeing him in person. Madden Farema moves a little different, man. Not gonna lie. I mean, that guy's very quick, flies downhill. There is going to be there is going to come a moment this season where there's going to be some poor soul on the other team that meets him one-on-one in the A-gap or comes shallow over the middle of the field, and they're just not going to have a good time because, man, that guy flies.
Whether it's on defense or him laying out some poor kick returner or punt returner, he's going to have a couple. Yeah, he can run. He can absolutely run. Overall, linebackers looked clean, fluid, athletic. It's a really impressive group. It really is. That's another position group that you can only tell so much without pads on, but the movement skills are really impressive in that group. Let's talk secondary, Trev. Let's go. We'll begin with cornerback. Obviously, this is our first chance to see Devontae Smith, our first chance to see Cree Thomas, and then I got to admit, I know like Leonard Moore, number doesn't matter, but it took me some getting used to looking and seeing who's number 2. He just looks a lot different. He looks a lot skinnier with that number 2 on, to be honest with you. And he's not any skinnier. It just looks that way because of the number. But we saw those guys. Christian Gray obviously out there as well. Trev, what'd you see from obviously Leonard's Leonard, Christian's Christian. They both looked like you'd hope that they would look. Let's focus on what you saw from Carson Hobbs, Devontae Smith, and Creed Thomas today.
Well, the first thing that I'll say is the thing that threw me off with Devontae Smith is he's rocking number 0. And he also has dreads.
And he's similar complexion, looks like a very similar complexion to Xavier Watts. Yeah.
Yep.
I had that,
and so when I saw him going through warm-up lines, I was like, hold on. I just spent the last
second.
Man,
is that
I was like, I just spent the last
6th year?
5 weeks talking about how replacing him is not going to be a one-man job, and I can swear
looks like it will be a one-man job. It'll be him.
It's Wazier Zotz. I knew it. It's him. But
new transfer from Appalachian State. What'd you say? Wazier Zotz.
Wazier Zotz.
Love it.
Oh man, it's just him with a mustache. So but Devontae Smith looked really good. He's really fluid. He flips his hips really well. He's a very smooth athlete. You could tell some of it on film too, that it's just where he was coming from and the background that he was coming from put him a little bit ahead of where Jordan Clark and where Thomas Harper were. Both played against quality competition, but again, you can tell why Devontae Smith was the starting nickel cornerback on a defense last year that went and played played Georgia, played at Tennessee, played in the games at Alabama, played in this past season.
And that's you know what I thought stood out to me, Trev, is I said when they got him, he was kind of like a combination of Jordan Clark and Thomas Harper.
Yeah.
And what I meant by that was he was like Thomas was twitchy, but he wasn't real smooth. But he was explosive and twitchy and physical. Jordan wasn't super explosive, but he was smooth and fluid and just really clean and natural in coverage. What I saw from Devontae today in drills confirmed what I saw in film. Is he can be explosive when the thing it calls for it, but he's really clean. There was a play where he pedaled, did like a 3-step pedal, and then did an outside turn or like a high turn, and just came right back downhill. That's what they're teaching. They're working on that high turn. Just wham, just open up those hips, spun around, got downhill. You're like, that is clean right there. And like that also added to the Xavier. Is that you? But Xavier has cut his hair, so that was the other thing. And so he wouldn't have looked like that. But I thought Devontae Smith was probably the guy that I was most encouraged by, because we had only seen him on film, and I wanted to see what he looked like in person, and he looked really good. Like he looked like but he's also like built strong, which how you want a nickel to have a little bit of armor on him, have a little bit of steel plating on him. And he had some of that today too, man. Just as I don't know if he can tackle for anything, because we didn't see him do that today, but just body type, he was strong. He, like I said, combination of Harper and Clark, but he's bigger than both of them. And then moves like that. So I was very encouraged by that. And another guy that I was really encouraged by today, Trev, as far as just about twitchy and athletic and smooth, Creed Thomas.
Creed Thomas was very, very smooth today. I was very happy with it, because a lot of what we saw, the jump that he made from his junior year to his senior year of high school, the things that stuck out to us on film, we got to see it in person today. Very twitchy, very smooth athlete. They did a drill where they were working on it almost looked like a trail technique a little bit, or it's, a drill that, if the receiver does get a step on you, how do you recover? How do you play it? And he performed one of the best in that drill outside of like Leonard Moore. But I mean, it's just that he's the fastest player in that room. And so
he might be the fastest player on their football team.
Yeah. And so you go and when I was watching Creed Thomas, because there was a second where I forgot he was number 20. And I was looking at him and I was like, that number 20 is pretty solid. Like, who is that? And Stiers had the roster next to me. He's like, this Cree Thomas. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of the stuff that we saw in film from his he can flip his hips really well. He can't, for all the attention that's going to be going to Dallas Golden and Mark Zachary when they get here, Cree Thomas, I think, is really going to benefit from being here early and getting into the rhythm of being in college right now, because man, he looks pretty sharp. He looks pretty sharp. And then the other player that I kept my eye on today too in the cornerback room was Carson Hobbs. I heard a little bit about how he was starting to progress and come on a little bit in the postseason practices. And it was, again, some of it little different for me because I don't have the sample size from the previous season. But what I do know is that today he looked smooth. The speed was there. I know a lot of people go back and forth talking about who's the faster one in that room. Is it Carson Hobbs? Is it Leonard Moore? You could see the speed today from Carson Hobbs. You saw the length today. There was one where Mike Mickens threw like an outside shoulder pass going up the right sideline to the wide receiver in this drill. And Carson Hobbs was able to reach up with his inside arm and bat it away, like at a weird angle. And you could see the length today a little bit. And so, yeah, Carson Hobbs had
with this technique today too. Carson, he's not as fast as Leonard Moore, but Carson can run. And you saw that today. Tell me if you agree or disagree with this, Trev. I don't think he's as fluid as the other corners as far as just hit with his hips, but he's not tight either. Like, I mean, if I had to do a ranking, I'd probably put him at the bottom, but he's so long and he's explosive. But the other thing about Carson is he has a lot of, and I don't know if you saw this in some of the, he has a lot of pop in his hands. Like, he's a guy that if you can get him good at getting his hands on people, he's that kind of corner that's just going to have, like, that guy's strong. Like, I remember I was talking to, I'm trying to remember who it was. I was talking to a guy that played against Dre Bly. And he was talking about, man, you'd play after you got done playing against Dre, like you almost had to wear rib pads against Dre because he was so strong. He was so good at punching that you just would have bruised ribs. He was just so strong. He would hit that jab and he would just, I mean, and I think Carson's got some really strong hands, and that's something that's going to, that combined with length and speed is something that's going to help him a ton because he really impresses in those areas. Just even seeing him on pads, you can see it. Like, just he's got some pop. It's like he hits that pad, man, and you can see that kid's got some punch to him. He really does. Safety is the weirdest room I've ever seen, Trevor. I looked at somebody and I was like, Bronte Johnson is 6'2", and he's at best the fourth tallest guy in that room. That is the longest safety room. It's like we knew it was going to be that way, but it's one thing to know it, and it's another thing to see it out there.
Yeah.
You're just like, this looks like a basketball team. Like these safeties look like a Division II basketball team. Like 6'5", 6'4", Division III basketball team. 6'5", 6'4", 6'3", 6'3", 6'2". It's a ridiculously long group. Talk to me about the safeties.
Yeah, I mean, there was a second where when I first saw them, I thought they were the receivers. Because I saw 11. Jadon Blair wears 11. So does KK Smith. I was like, KK Smith got tall? I was like, and so I was going through and I was looking. I was like, no, that's definitely the safeties because I see Don Schuler out there. And so for me, there's a couple people that stood out in that room. Don Schuler did Don Schuler things, but there were two guys. The first period they did like an angle pursuit drill, where they had to get off the block and then pursue one. It was like a joint drill, I think, with the tight ends maybe. Man, Luke Talich can move. I hadn't seen it in person, and I think that Brian and I were talking after practice. I think that there's this stipulation that he can't run, maybe because of the pick six against Florida State, or there's still that stigma that he's the walk on. And Luke Talich can fly downhill, dude.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
And I think some people don't know how to evaluate how fast the 6'5" guy is. Like people were shocked when Michael Floyd ran a 4.48 because he's very long-legged, and the galloping style is like. But yeah, he can run.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He can move downhill. Another guy that really flew downhill today in that same drill was Kennedy Urlacher. That dude was a missile.
Yes.
An
Yes.
absolute missile. He might be the shortest person in that room. He might be the
Dude, he's
hardest to run.
5'11" and he looks like he's tiny because they're
Yeah.
just the rest of the room is so he's at like which is like an inch shorter than I am, and he's just like looking up at all the other safeties. It's crazy, but dude, when Kennedy commits to getting downhill, he can fly downhill. Fly downhill.
Yeah. Yep. Small sample size, but we were talking about. I remember back when Notre Dame was playing both service schools this year, and they talked about who's going to be the secret weapon on defense for them. Yo, it might be Kennedy or Locker with how fast that guy
Yeah.
screams downhill.
Yeah.
But yep, they stood out. I think Bronte Johnson looked pretty good today. He looked a little bit thicker in the upper
Definitely
body.
filling out.
Mm-hmm.
His arm length is wild. Like he's third or fourth. He's like the fourth tallest guy in the room. His arms might be as long as all the other guys. He's got really like they have this drill where they kind of got low, like to the ground, and then they were working on tackling, and everybody else is like their hands are like kind of like about to hit the ground. It's like with Bronte, he had to like curl his arms up to keep his hands off the ground, his elbows up to keep his hands off the ground. He's very long. And then this is also the most, I mean, confident we've seen Bronte. Like he just the way he's going through, I mean, even just in warmups, you kind of watch him like just like there's a pep in his step today. Like he looked like you'd expect a top 100 athlete to look. Like he was really impressive today. Really impressive today.
Yeah, it was good to see him at home at the safety position. Outside of that, everybody else looked clean, but the two that really jumped out to me today, Jadon Blair was a part of. He was flashy in some of the things that he did. I think a lot of it was just he's a true freshman in his first spring.
There's still some uncertainty there, yeah.
Yeah. Slight hesitation. Nothing to do athletically. There's just a little bit of like, all right, like I think this is what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Here we go. And the stuff that he's
That's why I like
now,
watching him during the special teams drills, Trev. Because because it was just running downhill, and you're like, oh, okay. There's that gallop. Yeah. Yep.
It was good, man. No, it was a good day from him. I mean, it's just again, a lot of it when it got to individual defensive drills, it was a lot of assess what it was and then be like, okay, I'm gonna jump in. Whereas you saw the guys like a Kennedy or Locker who are like, okay, I've done this before. Mm-hmm. Time to go. And then the athleticism took over and shine. Jadon will get there.
Real quick, what'd you see from Chris Ash today? I know you and I were talking about that beforehand, but just talk about kind of like how he was conducting himself through practice, where he was and things like that.
Yeah, the first two periods of the day, he was with Marcus Freeman, hanging out around the linebackers. Mike Mickens was doing his thing with the DBs. They were kind of watching Max Bulla go through drills with the linebackers. Al Washington was doing his thing down around the goal line. And then once Freeman went over to mosey around with the offense, Chris Ash was just he was a little bit of everywhere around defense. He was stopping by, checking out the secondary. Then he walked on over to the defensive line, then went back over to the linebackers. So for him, it was a lot of observing because it was the first time outside of film. It was his first time seeing these guys doing football-related activities. He'd been around and he'd see him lift and see him do team run.
Right, and he's
stuff like
right, but it's a different animal when you put the helmet on and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of that from him today.
No kicking. We didn't see the most action we saw kicking is when James Rendell rode his bike by us when we were outside the stadium on his way to class. Yeah. So that was the closest we saw to some special team action today. But yeah, so that's what we saw from practice there. But again, 4 periods, a lot of athleticism. I mean, a lot of this is kind of like similar. Like, oh, what about this guy? Really athletic, can really run. What about this guy? Man, he's really athletic and really smooth. He can run. And it almost kind of feels like, am I repeating myself? Yes, you are. I don't know what else you want me to say. These guys are really long, athletic, and look really good. So, but it was an impressive first day for Notre Dame. Obviously, we'll be back to our next practice. Let me pull up and see when our next open practice is. Let me just pull up the schedule. We're not allowed to give like the whole practice, but it'll be next Wednesday. It'll be a similar deal. We'll get the first 4 practices, and then the next practice will be the Saturday after that. and we'll get entire practice on that Saturday. So we'll have a post-practice show that day as well. So this is one of 3 practices that we're going to get, not including the blue gold game. So we'll be back again next week doing the same thing, kind of breaking down practice. But we're going to go to Buy So Hold next, Trevor. But before we do that, folks, y'all know the drill. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this podcast. We would greatly appreciate a 5-star review, both for Irish Breakdown and CFB Nation. But as always, the best way to show support for what we're doing at Irish Breakdown is boards.irishbreakdown.com. You can join on a monthly membership, an annual membership, or if you want to really support our channel, you can join our booster club. And we've had 2 gold members sign up recently. I just put their orders in, or actually I sent their emails out this week. Just put that, going to get the shirt sizes for them. And, just put out another Shamrock order went through this past week. I just saw an email pop up of somebody who put a Shamrock order in too. But we truly appreciate that. It's going to allow us to continue to do the work that we're doing and eventually expand and those type of things. So definitely looking forward to that. So I want to thank you all that have signed up for that support. And if you haven't signed up, it's a great way for you to show support for what we're doing at Irish Breakdown. So Mr. Trowbridge. And it's Buy So Hold time, man. I know how excited you are about this. This is always a big part of your week. I know you've said this before. It's a big part of your week. You love Buy So Hold, and we've got a lot of great submissions today, man. Well, I shouldn't say we have a lot. We don't have a lot, but the ones that we have, there's going to be some good football talk here today. But I'm ready to get rocking and rolling, man. Are you going to be able to do this, Trevor? You going to be able to transition from talking about practice to Buy So Hold, or are you still a little too fired up about practice?
Nah, man, we're talking about practice, man. This is Buy So Hold. This is yeah.
I love it.
You know it, man. You know me. Stay ready. You never have to get ready. And I love Buy So Hold. So
well, good. So we y'all know the drill. Buy So Hold submissions are made by board members. So if you are a member of the board, you are allowed that we will take a submission from you and we will put that on the board. And we will get those up. If you are a not a board member and you still really want to get a Buy So Hold submission, and you can always do a super chat. But as I always say, if you're going to do a super chat to do a Buy So Hold, you might as well just use that money to go get a membership, and then you can ask as many submissions as you want in every single Buy So Hold. So you can definitely do that at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Salty Virginia Peanuts is the one who puts the message board post up every week that people respond to. And so he always gets first dibs on the first question. So, Trev, why don't you go ahead and get us started with the first Buy So Hold this week?
Yeah, you got it. Shout out to our guy Salty for putting this together, man. So, Buy So Hold from Salty Virginia Peanuts. Either Mark Zachary or Dallas Golden, if not both, will finish the fall in the 2 deep at corner, and Jadon Blair will start at field safety.
Well, Cree Thomas is going to have a say in that, and Carson Hobbs is going to have a say in that at some point in time. I would say that one of those two will have a pretty good shot at that, so I'll buy that one. The field safety one, the reason I'm more comfortable saying that I'm going to sell both of these for right now, but I think the first one right now has a better shot of happening right now just because the need is greater. I mean, you're one injury away from one of those 2 guys have to be in the 2 deep. You got no choice. So just by that alone, you've got a much better shot at one of those two guys getting in there. With what we saw from the safety depth chart today, Jadon Blair is going to absolutely have a chance to start this year at safety. I fully expect him to be in the rotation. But he's going to have to be really good to do that because Luke Talich is a really impressive athlete. Bronte Johnson's a really impressive athlete. Kennedy Urlacher is not going to go quietly into the night when we're talking about this battle at safety. So it's going to be a tough competition. I'm going to hold. I'm not going to actually sell any of them. I'm going to buy the first one with not a lot of conviction because Cree Thomas and Carson Hobbs are going to have a lot to say about that. I'm going to hold the second one just because I need to see more than one practice from Jadon. The difference is Jadon has a lot more competition for that role. And we didn't even talk about Jalen Stroman, who was interesting. Marcus Room noted today, he actually had more cleanup work done once he got to Notre Dame, which is interesting that like what's going on in the ACC with these medical teams, because it's like every time they get an injured guy from the ACC, they got to do more work to clean something up that I don't know if it wasn't done the first time or what, but I thought that was pretty interesting. You know, we did forget to do the Marcus Freeman press conference recap. So what we'll do is we'll do that at the end of the Beisel hold. Justin, thank you for reminding us of that, because we actually are going to talk a little bit more about that. But we don't have a ton of Beisel holds today, so we'll talk about the Marcus Freeman press conference after that. So thanks for the reminder on that, Justin. So, yeah.
Buy-sell hold from B-Jam and 41. Notre Dame will sign at least one recruit who is visiting this week. Running back Javian Osborne, cornerback Joey O'Brien, tight end Ian Premer, defensive end Rodney Dunham, and cornerback Thomas.
Jordan Thomas. Yeah, sorry about that. Bye. Yeah, I think they'll definitely get it at one. Yeah, I'll be shocked if they don't get at least one of those guys. I would have maybe had to think for a second if you'd have said two, but I would say right now I feel they've got a shot to get two of those guys, maybe three. Like we have an intel piece. Nick Kramer put an intel piece on Javian Osborne. They've done a great job with him. I saw him today. He did not hit. The smile on his face was did not go away the entire practice. Like you could see, and there was like always 5-6 people around him. And I knew Joey O'Brien was tall, but he's really tall. Like when you just walk next to him, you're like, that kid's really tall. He's a really good looking athlete. Got a chance to see him today. So they were both on campus today. Rodney Dunham, I believe Rodney Dunham and Ian Premer and Jordan Thomas are going to be here on Friday. But yeah, those are good looking athletes. But I think they'll get at least one. I buy that. I'd be very shocked if they don't get at least one guy from that group.
And then buy-sell hold again from B-Jam and 41. The defensive line stats will all improve in 2025. Sacks, tackles for loss, and tackles, etc.
If we're talking about on a per game basis, because I mean, unless they get back to the championship game, they're not going to have as many opportunities. But I think if we're talking about on a per snap basis, then I would agree with that. I mean, there's a lot of things could factor in. Maybe they are better at forcing 3 and outs and getting off the field quicker, and so maybe there's not as many opportunities. But I think if we're talking about per snap or per game basis, I expect that because number one, yes, you're losing an All-American D tackle and another guy that was an All-American the year before. And Riley Mills especially had a very productive season. Howard Cross was solid this season. But you had to already play without Riley Mills for the last 3 games of the regular season or the postseason. So you kind of got a taste of that. But you had so many injuries, Trev. Not just them, but no Botelho, no Boubacar for most of the year. I just don't think that injury is going to bug is going to bite you. You rarely see a position group that gets bit bad by the bug 2 years in a row. You just don't often see that. So I think they'll be healthy. They were also a very young group last year, either from youth. Boubacar was young. Bryce Young was young, or young from an experience at the position standpoint. So even though Josh Burnham and Junior Tuilamaka were juniors, both of those guys began their careers at linebacker. And Junior was an even later edge move than what Burnham was as a full-time guy. So very young and inexperienced group. They're all going to be more experienced. I mean, Gabriel Rubio's back. Jason Onye's back. They get Jared Dawson, who we pointed out was a more productive pass rusher on a per-snap basis the last couple years than Riley Mills and Howard Cross. So there's a lot of talent there. And the only unknown that we have right now, Trev, is what's the scheme going to be in regard to how much do they turn those guys loose. I'm not saying they won't. I'm just saying until we see it in a live period, I don't know what the defense is going to look like compared to Al Golden. But, I mean, you look at his numbers at Ohio State especially, you can say, well, man, their D linemen put up a lot of numbers. Yeah, it was like Joey Bosa and Adolphus Washington and like Sam Hubbard and like some future first and second round picks. So it's hard to really know, but how much better it's going to be. But I just think just experience alone and good health alone is going to make that a more productive, I should say, group, especially on the
Agreed.
edge.
Yeah, agreed. Experience and health is going to do wonders for this group. Absolutely. Why so hold? A close 1-point loss to an LSU Brian Kelly coach team in the championship would be a more devastating loss to Notre Dame fans than a blowout loss in the first round of the playoffs to a non-Power 4 team.
Dude, I don't even know why BJ. I don't even know why you're even putting this into the universe, my man. Like, I don't even want this even out there as a discussion point. Like,
yeah, man.
I
Why
didn't
these
want
are
to
two
think
options?
about that. But yeah, these options suck.
These are
But between those two, this is honestly a no-brainer. That's a buy. I mean, because there's no worse loss that Notre Dame could have than losing in the title game to Brian Kelly. Like, there's no potential. There's no worse loss than that. No worse loss than that. Like, just, I don't care. You could lose the first round game by 50. It's not as bad as losing two, because it's of what it means. It's like he gets his title and he gets it by beating Notre Dame. No, thank you. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It's a buy. Yes.
yeah. Well, I mean, that, and here's well, just with blowout losses in general, at some point you just kind of like you accept the fact that you're going to lose. A 1-point loss in the Natty to, I mean, Notre Dame lost by what, 11 in the national championship, and it ripped my heart out. A 1-point loss to Brian Kelly, I would just go play in traffic after that point.
Yeah,
if I'm just being honest.
Just go play in traffic. Let's just move on from this question. Just move on from this question.
Buy so hold from I Am Tenzin. The Miz is the greatest WWE heel.
I mean, I don't know who the heck the Miz is. I mean, I know he is, I guess, but I have no clue about this one. I have no idea. I'm not familiar with the Miz. He kind of came into wrestling when I stopped watching, but I have a hard time thinking that there's anything better than what, like, pick a D 100, whether it was Triple H or whether it was Shawn Michaels, or, I mean, Andre the Giant was a heel for a while. I mean, because he was the heel when they were putting Hulk Hogan over. I mean, so, like, Randy Macho Man Savage was a heel for a while. So, man, Ted DiBiase was a great heel back in the day. So, I mean, there's when Stone Cold first kind of got big, he was a heel, and they turned him good. They got him over because, like, he was so loved by the fans. They couldn't have, like, this really popular guy be a heel, so they turned him into a face. But no, I don't know, man. I don't know a lot about the Miz, but I have a hard time thinking. So yeah, Ric Flair was a heel for a long time back in NWC and NWA and in the WCW era. So yeah, I have a hard time with that one, man. I have a hard time thinking he's better than those guys. Really hard time, but I can't say for sure because I don't know that I ever watched that guy wrestle or watch any of his promos or any of his acts or anything like that. But I grew up watching wrestling in the 80s when it was, Andre the Giant was a heel and Ravishing Rick Rude and just some of those guys, and Andre the Giant and Ric Flair in the NWA. And then I also, as a young man, I grew up in my high school and college years were the Attitude Era, where The Rock was a heel for a while. Stone Cold was a heel for a while. DX was a heel. All of them were heel. I mean, it's just, dude. And some of the heel turns they had back then, like, were like fun, like real fun. But yeah. I have a hard time with that one. Really hard time with that one.
Buy so hold.
Oops, sorry.
Nope, quite all right. Memphis is the group of 5 rep this season.
They'll have a shot. I mean, I'll buy that they're going to be in contention. Anytime you replace a quarterback that was as productive as Seth Hannigan was, I got to see it. But they've recruited well. They've got some pretty good portal classes. I just got to see how their quarterback position develops before I'm ready to go there. Boise State's going to still be a really good football team this year. There's going to be some quality G5 teams. I don't, look, I'll tell you a team not to sleep on right now is Navy.
Yeah,
don't sleep on Navy with Blake Horvath coming back. Don't sleep on them at all. And somebody mentioned UNLV. I have no idea. I have no idea how good of a coach Dan Mullen's going to be at that school. Like if Barry Odom and Brendan Marion were both coming back, I'd say, yeah, definitely look out for UNLV. But I don't have any clue what BYU is going to be or what UNLV is going to be this year. No idea. No idea. So, yeah.
I'm with you. Buy, sell, hold. BYU is the Big 12 representative this season.
I mean, it's too early for me to make predictions for sure, but I'm going to buy that they are absolutely capable of that. I'm going to buy that they're a team that is probably in my top 2 to 3. I think Iowa State has a chance to be a decent team again. We talked about them yesterday or the other day in our rankings, but I love the K-State team coming back. You know, you've got Avery Johnson coming back. You've got Dylan Edwards coming back. Replacing DJ Giddens is not going to be easy, but I like the team they've got coming back. Arizona State, you know, lost some good foot. They obviously lost Cam Scadaba, who's a dude, but they've got a lot coming back next year as well. I like that football team. I think Kansas could have a little bit of a bounce back year with Jalen Daniels coming back at quarterback. And so there's some good teams in the Big 12, man. TCU, I thought TCU was going to have a bounce back year. Record-wise, they didn't really have a bounce back year, but if you look at what they did second half of the year, you know, they were a much better football team. But yeah, I think BYU is going to have a really good football team this year. And I think next year, Kalani Sitake is going to be in that conversation for 10 best coaches in college football. He's done a really nice job at BYU. Yeah.
Then finally, for my Tenzin, buy, sell, hold, Notre Dame gets the 5 seed this year.
I'll buy it as a possibility. Right now, I have Notre Dame going 11-1. And I think 11-1 might be a little tougher to get that 5 seed, as we saw last year, if the rules are the same way they are now. Now, there's a chance that the rules are going to be different, and Notre Dame could get the 5 seed because they're the 5. But in this instance, we're not talking about that. We're talking about they're probably ranked ahead of some of the conference champions. And that's how the rules are right now. But I think they got a shot at it. I mean, this Notre Dame team absolutely has a chance of going undefeated. I just try to kind of pump the brakes a little bit because like going undefeated is really hard. There's literally one team that went undefeated in the regular season last year in Power 4 football, and that team barely finished undefeated. And then they get to the playoffs and just get destroyed in their first playoff game. You know, so man, that one will be that's certainly possible. That's certainly possible. It's just hard for me to say they're going to go 12-0, and I you know, I think the schedules are going to be a little harder this year. Like I don't think there's going to be an elite team this year. Like there wasn't really an elite team last year. It was just head and shoulders above everybody else. But I do think there's going to be a better crop at the top in some of these leagues where there's not going to be quite as much parity throughout the league as there was last year. And that's going to make it a little bit easier maybe for there to be multiple one-loss teams in each of the leagues, which could make it a little bit harder for an 11-1 to get there. Notre Dame to be at that 5 seed. But I fully expect and predict Notre Dame will once again have a home playoff game at 11-1. It just depends on if they go 12-0 or not. And I think they're certainly capable of it. It's hard to predict that, especially in March. I just feel like that's like for me. This is just for me. Anybody, y'all can feel however y'all want. If I'm saying for me, this is how I feel about my evaluation. I feel like picking 12-0 right now is like just like huge homer pick for me right now. It's like it's March 19th. They've had one spring practice. Like, how can I I don't know who their quarterback's going to be. I don't know what their offensive line is going to look like. I haven't seen Chris Ash call one single play in the defense. It's hard for me to say as a Notre Dame analyst and Notre Dame fan, oh yeah, they're going to go 12-0. But what I can also say is when I watch them run around and I watch the film and I look at this team, I'm like, that's a really talented team. Are they capable of beating everybody on their schedule? Absolutely. They're capable. Sure. Like, there's not a team they're going to play this year that if they beat by 14 or more points, I'd be like, wow, that's surprising. I didn't see that beat down coming. I think they can not only beat every team they play, I think they can smack every team they're going to play. They're not going to unless they're going to look like 95 Nebraska all of a sudden. You know, but like even 2001 Miami had a couple close games that year. But that's why I say my prediction for this team is this year will be the same as it was last year. It'll be 11-1. Who they can lose to? I don't know. It's just really hard to go 12-0. That's really where I'm going to be at. I mean, who had 11-1 with Northern Illinois being the team that beat them on their bingo card last year? Pretty sure nobody that's not a Northern Illinois fan had that on their bingo cards last year.
And I bet Northern Illinois fans didn't even have that on their bingo card last year. Like, man, look, I'll say this about Notre Dame getting the 5 seed. Small sample size, but I'm going off of what we've seen. I think that it is a good bet that barring Notre Dame going undefeated, one of the runner-ups between the Big Ten and the SEC will most likely get that 5th seed. Most likely. And I say that I think it will be at least one of the conferences. I think it is very much within the realm of possibility that you see 2 SEC teams going into conference championship week ranked ahead of Notre Dame, or 2 Big Ten teams going into conference championship week ranked ahead of Notre Dame, barring Notre Dame going undefeated. And it's just, I will never predict a team going undefeated unless it is just the most Charmin ultra soft schedule that you could play then, to where it's like you probably should.
It's a team this talented with a returning starter quarterback. I'll be a lot more prone to pick next year's team to go 12-0 than I would this year's team. Because I'm going to know who the starting quarterback and most of the offensive line is going to be. I'm going to know what Chris Ash is capable of. You know what I mean? Like if Riley Leonard was coming back and I just knew he was coming back, and Al Golden was coming back, and I'm like, yeah, this team's going to go. I mean, I don't know who's going to beat this football team. But because there is all the uncertainty, it's just hard to do that. It's really hard to do that. But they're certainly capable of it, Trevor. There's no – and look, the other thing, too, is it also takes into mistakes by the committee. I thought Notre Dame should have been the 5 seed this year. They weren't, but they should have been. Because to your point, there was those multiple one-loss teams in the league. And, heck, there was a 2-loss SEC team that ranked ahead of Notre Dame. There was a 2-loss Big Ten team because they did the whole, well, we're not going to drop a team because they lost in the conference title game. So, and the Big 12 especially, or the Big 10 especially, has done enough schedule padding with some of their top teams that it's I'll be shocked if there's not 2 to 3 Big 10 teams with 1 or fewer losses.
Yep.
This season.
Yep.
Hope I'm wrong.
Buy, sell, hold from BK's personal chef. The following teams improving from last year: eye test or record, whichever you wish. I guess we can do a buy, sell, hold on each one of these teams. And so first one, buy, sell, hold, Georgia Tech.
I'm gonna buy Georgia Tech, and here's what I'm gonna buy. They lost some good football players, but I think that I'm pulling it up now, but I believe that their schedule's more favorable this season. And I also think getting Haynes King and Jamal Haynes back is good for them. It's going to help them. They have some offensive linemen coming back. They had some. My concern with Georgia Tech is they did have some key losses in the trenches. They lost a couple starting offensive linemen. Obviously lost Zeke Biggers. They had their defensive end, the kid that transferred in from USC, Romello. Forget his last name.
Romello
He transferred out. Yeah, he transferred out again. But they still also have some really talented guys who are coming back. I mean, their offensive line still has a shot to be pretty good. They lost some receivers. Obviously, the one receiver transferred out, or 2 receivers transferred out. They got some kids to transfer in, Isaiah Canyon. They're real thin at receiver, and that's a bit of a concern for me. Yeah. But there's still a lot of talent on that football team. No, actually, Malik Rutherford is still there. I'm sorry, he didn't leave. It was the other one that left.
Singleton.
Yeah, but there's some talent there. They're just thin at receiver. Love their quarterback. Love their running back. Offensive line should still be good. Defensive line, defensively, they're going to have to replace Tyler Santucci, who left for the NFL. I thought he did a great job for them last year. So, how's he going to be? How are they going to be on defense this year? I mean, there's some question marks that they have to overcome, Trev, to be before we find it out. How's Blake Gideon going to do at defensive coordinator after he's got to replace Tyler Santucci? Those are all questions that we have. Blake Gideon was a DB coach at Texas last year. I don't believe he's ever been a defensive coordinator. I think he's still pretty young guy. So how's he going to do? Don't know. I don't know the answer. And their schedule's not as hard as it was last year, but it's no cakewalk. They play at Colorado, home against Gardner-Webb, home against Clemson, home against Temple, at Wake Forest, home against Virginia Tech, at Duke, home against Syracuse, at NC State, at Boston College, home against Pitt, and then home against Georgia. So it's not the gauntlet it was last year, but it's still a tough schedule. So I think overall I feel comfortable enough. Schedule, returning quarterback, still should be pretty good in the lines. Still, I feel good about saying that they'll be better next year. Eye test and record. Yeah.
Yep. Georgia, I'm with you. I'm absolutely buying. How about Kansas?
Well, I mean, can Kansas get worse than what they were last year in the Lance Leopold era? I mean, we've seen Kansas be way worse than they were last year. I mean, like way worse than they were last year. But under the current coach is more of what I'm referring to. That's a fair question. They do get Jalen Daniels back, but losing Devin Neal stings. They lost a couple offensive linemen, still got a lot coming back. I just think they had one of those fluky bad years, but they got a lot of turnover on defense this year. They're one of those teams that's always going to kind of cycle their roster over a little bit, and it makes it a little bit difficult to kind of truly evaluate who they're going to be. But with Jalen Daniels, if he can stay healthy, they'll have a shot to be pretty good. But the thing for them compared to, let's say Georgia Tech, for example, Georgia Tech went to a bowl game last year. What were they, 7-5, and then lost a bowl game to go 7-6. Kansas wasn't very good last year. The 5-7. They had a couple good wins, but they were a 5-7 football team last year. So this year, you got Fresno to start, Wagner at home, and then at Missouri, home against West Virginia, home against Cincinnati, at UCF, at Texas Tech. You get K-State at home, Oklahoma State at home, at Arizona State, at Iowa State, and then you get Utah at home. So you don't got to play Arizona State. You do have a tough road game at Iowa State, but I would argue that the best teams you're going to play this year in your league, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, potentially, because, they're always like great one year, not the next. But you get Kansas State at home, you get Utah at home. So I think Kansas is gonna be a bowl team again this year. So yeah, I'll buy that.
And then finally, a team that you and I have talked about a little bit already this offseason is Nebraska. Where do you put them? Buy, sell, hold that they will be improving from last year?
I definitely think that they're the one I'm most confident in being better this year. Like, without a doubt, they're the one I think is. I like this team. They got a lot coming back from last year. Dylan Raiola is going to be. He was a true freshman last year. I don't care whether you like the kid or not. He's talented and he's going to be more experienced. He's going to be better than what he was. I thought they had a great portal offseason, shored up their offensive line in the portal. I thought the Rocco Spindler pickup was a great pickup for them, and what being a team, because I think they want to run the football more next year. I hope that they realized you put way too much on that kid's shoulders last year. Like, I absolutely put too much on that kid's shoulders. Now you look at it and you're saying, okay, they got a lot coming back. They got a lot new coming in. Here's the thing with Nebraska. Can they avoid letting a bad loss or letting a loss tank their season again? Because that seems to be how it goes with Kansas. It's like they look pretty good early, and then they have some sort of bad loss, and they just don't handle it well, and that causes them to collapse. Like, that just kind of seems to be their MO a little bit, is they get rolling, and then, 2023, they have the couple losses early in the year, and then they bounce back. They win 5 of their next 6. They're sitting there. They're 5-3. You've just got to win one more game against Michigan State, Maryland, Wisconsin, or Iowa to get into the bowl season. They had that really bad loss at Michigan State game. They had a shot to win, and then just lose their next 3. That just kind of seems to be who Nebraska is. I think Matt Rule's a really good football coach. I think they got a really talented quarterback. They're going to have one of the more talented rosters, if not the most talented roster among the traditional Big Ten West teams, right? And I like them. And their schedule's challenging, but it's not like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how they're going to manage that. They get Cincinnati at Arrowhead, which is going to be an awesome game to watch. Just seeing a college game at Arrowhead. I've said that I want to see like Notre Dame play like an Oklahoma or a team like that in Arrowhead. I think that'd be awesome. Like Notre Dame gets Missouri in Arrowhead. That'd be really cool. They get Akron at home. They get Houston Christian at home. They get Michigan at home. They get Michigan State at home. They only play one game away from home, and that's in Missouri up until they travel at Maryland on October 11th. Then they're at Minnesota, then home against Northwestern, home against USC, at UCLA, at Penn State, home against Iowa. So they get Michigan and USC and Penn State, who are 3 good teams. Only one of those is on the road. There's no Oregon. There's no Ohio State. And you get Michigan State at home as well. You get Iowa at home. So like I think their schedule there's no Wisconsin on your schedule. I think their schedule sets up very nicely for them to be an 8, potentially 9-win football team based on their roster. It's just, can Nebraska learn how to win games? That's the key. What do you say, Trev?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Nebraska, I'm gonna buy this one as well. I'm a little bit on the opposite end though. This is the one I'm almost least confident in because I don't know what that looks like. I think that Georgia, with what they have coming back, not that Nebraska doesn't, I think they're going to be better than 7-6 because they were pretty close to winning some of those losses that they had last year too. If they knew how to finish against Georgia, that would have been another win. Kansas, for the sole point of, I don't think that they get worse. I don't. Nebraska's just, I've said this before, I got to see it. Because the last 2 seasons, I've been like, yo, dude, Nebraska could be a 9-10 win team. They got this going for them. I like Matt Rule. And then I'm starting to find myself saying some of the same things of like, I like Matt Rule. I like some of the pieces that they have, but I got to see it. Their schedule is more favorable, though. I will say that is kind of the one differentiator, I will say, because this past season, they had to go and travel and play in the Horseshoe. They had to play IU on the road. They ended up being really solid. So, but for me, I do believe that Dylan Raiola is going to be a better team, but I gotta see it.
Fair.
Gotta see
because we've said this for 2 years in a row now prior to this year.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the year Nebraska's got a shot to turn it around. And they're losing the same way they did before, Trev. It's a bunch of, they had a couple bad losses this year, got blown out by Indiana, but a lot of their losses are just kind of like losses we've seen from them in the past. Don't know how to close out. It couldn't close out a game against Illinois. Couldn't close out the game against Ohio State. Couldn't close out the game against UCLA. Couldn't close out the game against USC. Couldn't close out the game against Iowa. It's the same thing. So, until they show us they can win that, their only competitive win last year was over Rutgers, 14-7.
Mm-hmm.
They blew out UTEP. They blew out Colorado. They blew out Northern Iowa. They beat Purdue by 3 scores. They blew out Wisconsin. They don't know how to win a close game. And until they show that regularly, I understand the skepticism, certainly. I just look at their schedule. I'm just like, there's a bigger talent gap between them and some of those teams that they've barely lost to than there has been in the past.
Sure.
That's really that's more so why I'm willing to buy this now, even without knowing that. I just think the talent gap is going to be a little bit wider for them and some of those teams this year. That's
totally
where I'm coming from on that.
I get that.
This is an interesting one.
Yeah. This one's. Yeah, buy, sell, hold. The following teams take a step back from last year. Eye test or record, whichever you wish. So, first one, BYU.
I like BYU. I talked about them earlier. I think they're going to be in the Big 12 title hunt again. So I really like that football team. So I'm gonna sell BYU taking a step back, Trevor. Like I said, Kalani Sitake, he's had one bad year recently, and that was 2023, their first year in the Big 12. I think the adjustment to playing that schedule, and they had some issues that they had to deal with, but they got a lot coming back.
Yeah.
Their quarterback comes back. LJ Martin, Keanu Hill's gone, but they played a lot of backs last year. All their receivers come back. Their offensive line, I think they returned 3 starters, and they get Andrew Gentry transferring in from Michigan. Their defense didn't lose a whole lot. They don't lose a lot of guys from last year. They were a pretty good team last year. And so they also, I think they got a really good, they got a good transfer. Yes, the Tanavasa kid. I couldn't remember if they lost a good D lineman to Utah or they got a good lineman from Utah. But yeah, the Tanavasa kid that they got from BYU is a good football player. So I like BYU a lot. And I don't even love their quarterback. He's solid. He's a playmaker, but I don't love him as like they're just a really tough veteran football team that's got better athleticism than people give them credit for at those spots, especially at wide receiver. But I'm selling that BYU is going to take a step back. I like that football team.
I'm with that. No, I'm with that completely. I think they're very well coached. I think BYU is turning into one of those perennial powers in the Big 12, somebody that you kind of have to look for and be like, hey, like this is a team that could be on the come up. This is a team that you have to be aware of, especially after this past season. Really love their head coach as well. But what we've seen, I mean, man, look, that the Big 12 is going to be the Wild West. Legitimately, it's one of those where if you told me, yo, BYU is right back in the mix in 2025, I'd believe you. But if you also told me that it's like, hey, BYU's just not sniffing the conference championship this season, it's like, who's it going to be? No, it's going to be Colorado and Houston. It's like,
do you know why
like,
I am? There's two teams in the league that I'm most confident will be good again, and it's Arizona State and BYU.
Yep.
And here's why: they're the two most physical teams. And I think that translates from year to year better than just being talented, because that says a lot about the culture that you're building. I also think they have experience at quarterback. Like Kansas State is a physical team sometimes. Other times I'm like, dude, what are you like? Why are you trying to get cute right now? You're Kansas State. You know what I mean? Like, I've got to see them be more consistent. I like Chris Kleiman a lot, but I thought last year he didn't take advantage of the team he had. Kalani Sitake, I think, has built a team that like they'll throw the ball, they'll move around. They're not like an old school lineup smash mouth football team, but they're a physical football team. Not physical and they play smash mouth. I mean, their receivers block, their safeties tackle. They're just a team that competes and battles and they're physical. And I think that allows for more consistency within the program. That's why, but I agree with your point overall about the Big 12, Trev. Spot on. I just think that's what makes BYU different for me and why I'm more optimistic. But here's the thing I'll say about it. There's no team in the league that isn't capable of going way up or way down in the top 7 or 8 because of this. There's such a talent. There's such a parity of talent in that league that there's just not a huge gap in talent. Like you look at the best team in the Big 10 and the 8th best team in the Big 10, there's a ginormous gap in talent. Same thing in the SEC, same thing in the ACC. That's not true in the Big 12 for two reasons. The lower level teams have a lot of talent because they're getting a lot of those Texas kids that nobody's ever heard of. But then also the teams at the top aren't as talented as the other top teams in those leagues, which makes for a league where you're not going to have someone competing for a title, national title, but it makes for the best regular season in college football, the most competitive regular season in college football. And it's not close, in my opinion. And that's what I love about the Big 12. Big 12 is like people say it's not a great league. Well, you're only saying that because there's no great teams. That's a great league as far as like entertainment value. There's a lot of really good football coaches in that league, you know, and that's a good league. But BYU is the one team that I'm most confident in repeating what did last year because of the style of play, but also they have, I would argue, them and Arizona State also. The second reason is those two teams, in my view, of the top teams have the least amount of turnover from last year's football team. That's another factor for me. Continuity is going to be huge in that league from year to year. Oklahoma State lost a lot of dudes, and they went from second best team in the league to garbage. That's just the nature of it, man. That's the nature of it.
Wild. No, absolutely. Yep. The next team on this list is North Carolina, and this one for me is really interesting because
let's hear it.
And I'm not even Bill Belichick is a factor. I think like he has enough experience. I don't know how well he's going to translate. Everybody knows that he can coach the game of football. I don't know how well it's going to translate from a relationship standpoint to his players, but you go and you look at their schedule, I would be amazed if they took a step back because this schedule is not hard. It's just not. The one thing that's weird about it, they don't have any back-to-back home or away games. Literally their entire season is home, away, home, away, home, away, home, away, home, away, home, away. It's their entire season. They don't have back-to-back home games. They don't have back-to-back away games. preseason outside of Clemson that they host on Saturday, October 4th. The hardest team that they're going to play might be Duke, honestly. I mean, Syracuse, they have a lot of question marks. They lost a lot. They play Cal on the road, UCF maybe, because we were just talking about the Big 12.
Are we talking about North Carolina?
Yeah.
I think. Are you looking at last year's schedule?
No, I'm looking at their
2025 game 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you said until they play Clemson. I think you said until they play Clemson, their toughest game is Duke. So that just totally threw me off.
Oh no, no, I'm sorry. I said maybe I misspoke. Outside of Clemson, their hardest game might be Duke.
Oh, I got you. Okay, I got you.
Yep.
That makes more sense.
Yep.
You know what's interesting about their schedule, Trev, is I agree with you. There's not a lot of great teams on there, but there's a lot of good teams on there. Like I think TCU is a good football team. UCF on the road, who knows what they're going to be with a new coach. Clemson, they're going to get smacked by. Cal on the road, do we know what Cal's going to be this year? But there's some talent there. At Syracuse, like Duke, at NC State, that's going to be a team with some talent. But your overall point is that's not a gauntlet of a schedule. It really isn't. The bye situation is a little weird. It's like 4 games, bye, Clemson, bye. It's like you're putting all your chips in the Clemson basket, man. We're giving ourselves extra week to prepare and an extra week to recover from that game. Like that's the epitome of a football program saying we're going all in, baby. We're putting all our chips in the middle of the table.
Better be the most physical North Carolina football game, man.
And they're still going to get killed. I think it's going to be a beatdown. It is a weird schedule though. It's a weird schedule. There's a lot of games they could win and a lot of games they could lose. Trep, so are you buying or selling that? Like, did you say?
Yeah, I'm gonna sell this. They went 6-7 this past season. I don't know if I see them losing 7 games again this year. Now, obviously they were 6-6 going into the postseason. They lost their bowl game, but I sell it. I'm not putting a whole lot of water into it because I don't really know the makeup of their roster. What I know about North Carolina's roster is this. Notre Dame got their kicker, and I know that Bill Belichick is their head coach. But I haven't dug too deep into who they have coming back or who they have coming in. But for me, looking at it with Belichick's experience as a coach and what their schedule is, I don't see them being like taking a step back and going 5-7 and being not eligible for the postseason.
The smart thing that he did, in my opinion, was hiring 2 guys with college experience to run the defense. Now his son Steve only has 1 year of college experience, but he was a coordinator in college football last year with Washington. Wasn't he? He was their D coordinator last season, correct?
Yes.
So at least he has that. But Freddie Kitchens has been in the NFL and in college. He was on that staff last year. I didn't love the roster last year. I don't love the roster this year. There's some talent there. They bring a lot back on offense. Davion Gase is a kid that Notre Dame recruited. Caleb Hood, he's a good player. Losing Amari and Hampton's big, and they lost a lot off their defense, like a lot. And they got some transfers, but I just don't know how good they're going to be on defense. The big key for me is they got to keep Max Johnson healthy. Like that's the big key. If he goes down, they're screwed. I mean, they're really screwed. And he got hurt in the opener last year. He got hurt against Minnesota, and they got to keep him healthy. He gives them their best chance to win games. I'm not in love with that team. I could actually see North Carolina being just as bad as they were last year. The question was, will they take a step back? I'll say this. I agree with you, Trev. I don't know that they're going to take a step back record-wise, but I think they could maybe take a step back eye test-wise because I just don't think they're going to be as talented as they were last year. But I think their schedule is set up, like who they get at home. Because like sometimes your schedule, you could take the same 12 teams and play them, but one is harder than the other. Like, okay, your 4 best teams you play, you get them all at home. That's not always ideal. If 3 of those you have no shot at beating, because now it means some of the teams that you might beat, you don't have to play them on the road, and that can make your schedule a little bit tougher. Theirs isn't like that. I mean, Clemson's the only team you're like, they got no shot at that game, in my opinion. Everybody else at home, I think TCU can beat them at home in Chapel Hill, but it being at home gives them a much better shot to win. You know, Virginia at home, Stanford at home. Like, they should absolutely beat Charlotte. They should absolutely beat Richmond. They should absolutely beat Virginia at home. They should absolutely beat Stanford at home. So between TCU at home, UCF on the road, Cal on the road, Syracuse on the road, Wake Forest on the road, Duke at home, and NC State on the road, they only got to win one of those games to match their record from last year, to your point, Trev. So record-wise, I don't know that they'll take a step back, but eye test-wise, I think that they will. I think that they will.
And then the final team on this list, Brian, is Missouri. So buy, sell, hold of them taking a step back.
I'm buying that. I mean, people could talk about Missouri's schedule all they want. I just don't like their roster. I mean, I thought they had some ugly wins last year. They benefited a great deal last year from a soft schedule. The schedule this year is not hard again. You know, I mean, they play Central Arkansas at home, Kansas at home, this is in order, Louisiana at home, South Carolina at home, UMass at home, Alabama at home. They don't leave their home stadium until October 18th, and they got to go to Auburn. But there's still two teams in that stretch that can beat them in their place in South Carolina and Alabama. They go to Auburn, to Vanderbilt. Then they finish the season at home against A&M, home against Mississippi State, at Oklahoma, at Arkansas. Like, I see them between at Auburn, at Vandy, at Oklahoma, at Arkansas. I think they're at best 2-2 against those teams. So, and then in order to be better than they were last year, because they were, 10-3 last year, correct? Missouri's 10-3. They went 9-3 in the regular season and then won a bowl game. So in order for them to be a 3-loss team again, they either got to be better than 2-2 with road games at Auburn, at Vandy, at Oklahoma, at Arkansas. They got to be better than 2-2 against those, or they can only afford to lose one home game against Texas A&M, Alabama, and South Carolina, all of whom have better teams than them. And they're going to have to do that without Theo Weiss, without Luther Burden. And, you know, and their quarterbacks, Bo Prabula.
Or Drew Pine.
Or Sam Horn.
Yep.
Like, I just don't think it's happening. I just don't think they're going to be that good of a football team. They do have some decent players coming back on defense, and they got some transfers and all that. But I think this team is going to take a step back. I think losing 3 offensive linemen and losing those 2 receivers, because those are 2 really good receivers. And then Brady Cook had a down year, but he's still better, in my opinion, than Bo Prabula, especially running that offense. Yeah. Like, I think Bo's athletic, but is he going to be able to throw in that offense? I'm not a big fan. So I that of these 3, that is my easiest buy. Eye test and record-wise, they're going to take a step back.
Agreed with that completely.
Those were fun.
Those were.
BK's personal chef. Thank you for those 2 BISA holds, man.
Those were good.
Those were a lot of fun. I don't think the chat apparently doesn't really care about this conversation, you know, but that was a lot of fun, man. I appreciate that very much. That was good stuff.
Definitely solid. Buy, sell, hold from BK's personal chef. Notre Dame's new staff is built in a way that favors certain staff members recruiting certain specialty areas. For example, Myron crushes the West Coast and Polynesian kids. Sider rips through the Northeast for running backs and other skilled positions. Dylan McCullough II hits Ohio and Indiana, the rest of the Midwest.
Oh, I think there's certainly something to that, Trev. I mean, why would you not hire Myron Tungavaloa Most and say, hey, you're going to help us on the West Coast with defensive linemen?
Facts.
Why would you not say that to him? You know, hey, Jawan Sider, who played at West Virginia and has been at Penn State and West Virginia last decade. We're not going to take advantage of you being up in the Northeast. You know, now here's the thing about Jawan Sider. He's not only recruiting that area. I mean, he's going to scout. I mean, the stud they got on campus right now at running back is from Texas. Yeah. But yes, there's absolutely a benefit. You're also bringing him in to help you in Florida. Like his coaching connection is in the Northeast. His personal connections are in Florida, which is why he did so well recruiting the state of Florida. You know, Dylan McCullough played at Indiana, I believe, correct? It's coaching at Notre Dame. There's certainly some connections there. So you're absolutely bringing in certain coaches to have those type of connections. There's no question. And I think that's smart. You're bringing guys that have different impacts in different parts of the country. That's called being a good leader who understands building a coaching staff in a way that complements each other really nicely. And I think Marcus Freeman's done that with this recruiting stuff. And then we didn't talk about Jordan Blake, whose entire high school playing career, coaching playing career, and all but 5 minutes at Colorado, his entire recruiting career is in Texas, which is huge. Even if you throw him in there, that's big time.
What were the ties of that? He was the defensive analyst in the secondary for West Virginia. I believe he's now helping out in the secondary at Notre Dame. I forgot his name.
Javon Codlin. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, where did his background come in from as well?
Not sure on that one. Yeah.
Okay. But those are still ties to areas at least from where he was at his previous college. Those are still ties that Notre Dame wants to have on the East Coast out in that area as well. So, yeah. No, I think there's definitely something to that, BK. Really do.
Let me find out a little bit to answer that question about Javon Codlin, because it looks like he was at West Virginia. He was at Emporia State. Kansas Wesleyan is where he played. So he's kind of a Midwest blue-collar type of regions type of kid based on his background. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And it looks like he was – yeah. So that's his background. Background.
Buy, sell, hold from Black Irish 864. 3 Notre Dame quarterbacks will throw for 2 or more touchdowns.
Sell.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Buy, sell, hold. The Notre Dame offensive line will be finalists for the Joe Moore Award.
Yeah. I'm going to buy that.
Yep.
I'm going to buy that. There's just too much talent there. And again, I don't think Joe Rudolph's a bad offensive line coach. I think he's a good offensive line coach. My question is, he's an elite offensive line coach. That I don't know. There's just too much talent there, in my opinion. Like people are like Anthony Knapp. If Anthony Knapp's playing for Notre Dame, and I'm like, look, guys, I don't think Anthony Knapp should be Notre Dame's left tackle because I think they're better players, but I think that kid should be playing somewhere. He's a really good football player. Like 3 years ago, like in 2021, we're like, this Knapp kid might be our most talented guy outside of Joe Alt. But now it's like, I don't want that kid on the field. Why? Because you want Gerby Lambert on the field. You want Charles Jagus on the field. You want Sullivan Absher on the field. These monsters on the field because it's such a talented room. And so, yeah, I think that they're going to be absolutely fine.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely fine.
I mean,
yeah.
They were semifinalists for the award this year. And the offensive line had a lot more holes than what people thought.
They were not a finalist last year. Somebody in the chat just asked that. They were semifinalists last year.
Semifinalist. Yep.
And the semifinalists was built off of, Trevor, honestly, the numbers and the record. They were not a semifinalist in how they played. They weren't. But that adds into the question isn't, are they deserving of it? The question is, will they be in it? I think next year they'll be in it just on reputation, and it's Notre Dame, and the numbers are going to be great, and the offense is going to score a lot of points, and Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price and the running backs are going to be studs and all that. But I actually think they're going to play like it too at times. And so if this unit was to your point, that's a great point, Trev. If this unit was a semifinalist group, what's next year going to be?
Yeah.
Like that's where I'm at. So yeah, I buy that. They got to prove it, but I mean, right now, what I know of March 19th, yeah. They should have one of the 3 or 4 best offensive lines in college football.
Totally agree. Buy, sell, hold. A running back will win the Heisman Trophy Award.
I buy that it's possible. I mean, I wouldn't put a lot of money on it. And we've talked about this before, Trev. In this modern era, running backs that win the Heisman Trophy have to put up monster numbers.
Yeah, look, I'll say this. Do I think that somebody of Jeremiah Love's caliber? Are we talking about like a Notre Dame running back or just?
I just think he means running back in general. Is what I.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I think it's tough that when you have a season like what Ashton Genty had, and he didn't win the Heisman. And yes, I understand that it's like, well, Travis Hunter was dynamic. It's like, well, I hate to break it to you, but Travis Hunter is not going to be the last dynamic player to play in college football every single time that there's a down
But
year
he
for
was a bit of a
quarterbacks.
unicorn, though. I mean,
Agreed.
1,000-yard receiver and 4 picks on defense, and like you kind of feel bad for Ashton Genty a little bit because he played. I mean, he had a Heisman Trophy caliber season in the year where 9 out of 10 years he wins it. But I mean, let's be honest, the last 3 years he would have lost it every year.
Yeah, I mean,
Last
it's
4
what
years. I mean, you'd have to go back to what 2017. I mean, look, in 2017, Trev, Bryce Love rushed for 2,118 yards and 19 touchdowns, and he got blown out by Baker Mayfield.
Oh yeah, man. I
Saquon
mean,
Barkley that year finished 4th.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we're talking about look, if running backs like Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley and Melvin Gordon and Jonathan Taylor
yeah,
and guys that just put up absolutely monster numbers didn't walk away with a Heisman,
right,
what kind of year are we talking about that there has to be
right,
no dynamic quarterback, no
right,
unicorn of a player, no
right,
dynamic wide receiver, and then it's like, all right, running backs, what up, Heisman? So do
right.
I buy it as a possibility, but
Like
that's
J.K. Dobbins in 2019 rushed for 2,003 yards, 6.7 yards per catch, and 21 touchdowns. He was 3rd in Heisman voting on his team behind Justin Fields and Chase Young. It's like the last time a running back won it was back in 2015. And that was a guy that played at Alabama. So if we're talking about a 2,000-yard season from a guy, like if Jeremiah Love runs for 2,000 yards this year, he's winning the Heisman because he's at Notre Dame. He's probably not going to run for 2,000 yards. I'd be shocked if he does, just opportunity alone. If Alabama has a running back that rushes for 2,000 yards, Richard Young breaks out and rushes for 2,000 yards. Okay, sure, maybe that guy, if he has 2,000 yards and 25 touchdowns, could win it. But like, that's literally the numbers that last time we had a Heisman Trophy winning running back, he rushed for over 2,200 yards and 28 touchdowns. Since then, the next year, the highest ranked running back was Dante Foreman from Texas, rushes for 2,028 yards and he finishes 8th. In 2017, Bryce Love finishes 2,118 yards and 19 touchdowns, finishes 2nd. Saquon finishes 4th. The next year, the highest ranked running back is Travis Etienne, who rushed for 1,600 yards and 24 touchdowns, finishes 7th, behind Mackenzie Milton and Gardner Minshew and Will Grier. The next year, J.K. Dobbins rushes for 2,000 yards and 6.7 yards per attempt and has 21 touchdowns. He finishes 6th. Chuba Hubbard rushes for 2,094 yards and 21 touchdowns. He finishes 8th. 2020, you have 1,856 yards for Devontae Smith. Great year. Najee Harris rushes for 1,400 yards and 26 touchdowns. He finishes 5th. And you know what's missing from a lot of these? Like Jonathan Taylor. Here we go. Jonathan Taylor in 2019 rushes for 2,003 yards, 21 touchdowns, and he finishes 5th. The year before, he rushed for 2,194 yards and 16 touchdowns, averages 7.1 yards per carry, 16 touchdowns, 2,194 yards. He finishes 9th. Quinnen Williams, Gardner Minshew, Will Grier all finished ahead of him. Why? Quarterback numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's one of those things where it doesn't happen a whole lot. They have to put up great numbers, and I don't know that there's anybody out there that has those kind of is going to have that kind of production at the kind of school that you need to have that kind of production.
Yeah.
And I don't see it. I don't see it.
And it's compound. You have to put up that good of numbers and also hope that it's a down year for all of the other positions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean,
I'm going to pull up, like, let's see here. What was his last? Was his last year? It was in 2014. So 2014, Melvin Gordon rushes for 2,587 yards, 7.5 yards per attempt, and 29 touches. And he got doubled up by Marcus Mariota. I would argue that Melvin Gordon's season was more unique than Marcus Mariota's. Marcus Mariota had a phenomenal year. 4,400 yards passing, 42 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, rushed for 700 yards. But we've seen quarterbacks do that. But my point is, a quarterback that puts up those kind of numbers is he's always going to win the award. He just is. And honestly, should. Because he's in more control. A quarterback's in more control. Where an offensive lineman, you could look at it and say, well, every Wisconsin running back runs for 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
Yep.
Agreed.
So that's where I'm at with that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be hard. Now, I'll say this. If you have a year that's down at quarterback, you could do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Biso Hold from Domer Grizz, the assistant coach with the hardest job during the spring practice is Gino Guidugli.
I'll sell that. I think the guy with the hardest job this spring is going to be Joe Rudolph, because you're putting together an offensive line and you've got some, I get where they're coming from on this, but at the end of the day, Mike Denbrock and Marcus Freeman are going to have a pretty, yeah. They're going to have a pretty big say in it. And I think that's going to kind of take care of itself a little bit more. Joe Rudolph has a lot of pressure on him. You've got a really talented room. You got to move guys around. Anthony Knapp's injured. Ashton Craig is injured. Emil Wagner, you might have to pull some reps off of him. I think that's going to be a lot tougher, in my opinion. A lot tougher.
Yeah. Yeah, I get where you're coming from this one, but there's not a whole lot of other hands in the pot when we're talking about the D-line and we're talking about offensive line. But for the quarterback situation, it's not just going to be what Gino Guidugli says at the end of the day. So, and then to follow up, the one with the easiest job is Max Bulla.
I mean, I'm at the point now, Trev, where it's like, I don't know that any of these jobs are easy, but I get what they're saying. I'm still selling it, though, because, and I mean no disrespect to Jawan Sider. You got to do a good job coaching, but I was watching Friday the other day, and this is, the beginning, you got to be as stupid to get fired on your day off. You got to be a really bad football coach to not get this room pretty good. Now, I think Jawan Sider is an outstanding football coach, but I also think that you don't have to be an outstanding football coach to get this room ready to go.
Yeah, that's facts.
That's a pretty smooth job right there.
Yep.
And I would argue that maybe you could even argue that Mike Brown has a tougher job this spring than Gino Guidugli for similar reasons. So that's going to be tough. I'm going to have to sell that, because I think the answer to that is Jawan Sider. I think he has the easiest job. Because I think Max Bulla's got some tough decisions to make. Who's going to start at will?
Oh, yeah.
Is it going to be Kingston? Is it going to be Jaden Osbury? Is it going to be, that's
some of
how
it
do you
too
do
is
the
gonna
rotation? And go ahead, Trev.
I was going to say, some of it is going to be figuring out the rotation, because it's not as simple as last year. It's okay, well, you kind of have to filter somebody in and out between. I mean, you knew that Jack Kaiser and Drake Bowen were going to be on the field at the same time, but a lot of the difficulty with his job is not only do you have viable candidates for that will spot, you also now have another young cat in Madden Faremo that's going to be fighting for playing time. Can you continue to keep Preston Zinter and Teddy Rizak and Bodie Cahoon off the field as well? I mean, look, his job is, I get where you're coming from, because that room, especially at the top, is absolutely loaded with talent. But it's for Jawan Sider, you kind of just have to follow what the blueprint was that Dylan McCullough laid out for how to rotate these guys in and out. So that's yeah. But I get where you're coming from these for sure. Buy, sell, hold from the names Isaac. Rich Rodriguez banning his players from uploading TikTok dances will help his players focus on the team, and it's not just an old man yelling at the sky.
I buy that. I mean, look, I get what he's trying to establish a culture there of seriousness. Like guys, we're trying to do something here. That's I totally buy this. I'm totally good with this. Totally good with this. And I think it was TikTok dances from the locker room. Did I read that incorrectly? Did he just ban all TikTok dances, or is it just in the locker room?
I'm not sure. Look, when it comes to stuff like TikTok, I'm impartial, and you can chalk that up to me being younger, what my generation is. I think that there's a time and a place for it. I think that if you're just hanging out in the locker room, but like, look, if you're showing up late to practice because you're doing some dance, that's silly. And if that's what caused him to do it, that's totally fine. If it's to get your players focused and to build a culture, I'm all on board for that. Like, I don't have an issue with it either way. If players want to do it, fine, as long as it doesn't impede with whatever's been going on, But then if it becomes a detriment, then it's got to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I look at it. So I look at anything.
You have all types of rules. You have things you can and can't do. You got to be in at a certain time. You be stuff like this. I see. Was looking like, it's a First Amendment thing. Like, first of all, you don't freaking know what the First Amendment is. If you're going to saying guys can't do TikTok is a First Amendment violation, you're showing yourself to be an effing moron because you don't understand what the First Amendment, what free speech is. You do not have the right to just say whatever you want, whenever you want. It's a very specific thing that it says. Second of all, it's whatever your rules are. I mean, like, you're trying to establish something. I don't think there's any harm in kids doing TikTok dances, but you're trying to establish something. You're trying to say, hey, look, this is who we are. It's no different than saying, hey, you got to be in at a certain time on certain nights. You're trying to build a culture. You're trying to build a focus as a new football coach. And I'm fine with it's like this. What are you willing to sacrifice to be part of this football team? Like, right. So if you not being able to do TikTok dances is something that says, hey, I don't know, I want to be here, then that you just answered a serious question for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that. If he's letting them, they're not going to not win the championship in the Big 12 this year because they were doing TikTok dances. But again, you're trying to say, what's the buy-in here? Now, he didn't do this at Jacksonville State. So clearly he sees this as something that's unique to West Virginia. Like, people act like Rich Rod. I don't think he did this. I'm going to look this up. I don't think he did this when he was at Jacksonville State. So you don't think his kids at Jacksonville State were aware of TikTok? Why is he doing it with this team? Because something has made him be like, there's an issue here that we gotta fix something. So I'm good with it. And you got to find out what you need to be or what you don't need to be. Here's the thing too, man. It's like when you look at something like this, and look, there's just a lot of things that I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. This is a situation where I look at it, Trev, and I think that there are so many distractions for young people now that we didn't have to deal with when I was young. I didn't have Twitter. We barely had the internet. Like, my freshman year of college, it took like 5 minutes for me to get online. I had to wait for, it was like, okay, I'm going to start the online process, go take a shower, come back, and it might be ready to go. Yeah, it was you try to pull up a page on ESPN.com and it takes a couple minutes to you know what I mean? So,
sure.
So there's so many more distractions. And I think it's okay at times for adults who don't think young people understand the consequences of how they're putting themselves out there. How many times have we seen about people losing scholarships or getting fired because they made some stupid tweet where they were, rapping lyrics and then dropping the N-word, just singing along to a song when they were 15. Like, well, you know what? Like, you shouldn't have done that. But you're 15. You're like, I'm not thinking about that because you're an idiot. And none of your parents had enough sense to say, what the heck are you freaking doing? You know what I mean? And so it's like, you have an adult saying, listen, there's a culture problem in this football program. That's why we underachieved. And this is something that I see as a distraction to what we're trying to do. So we're going to say, hey, look, we're going to do this. Then you find out what the buy-in is. And I don't understand why people lose their minds every time somebody tries to tell a young person, you just can't do whatever you want whenever you want to do it. And the final piece of this is, and this is my whole thing with all these suits, it is not a right to play college football. It is not a right to play at the University of West Virginia or West Virginia University. It is a privilege. And with certain privileges comes certain things. Like, Trevor, I could tell you right now, hey, Trev, you can't tweet this, you can't tweet that, and work for me. Now, I'm not telling you can't tweet it. What I'm telling you is you can't tweet that and also still work for me. We've had some conversations like this, right, where you understand that. So you have a First Amendment right to say whatever heck you want. I don't have a right. There's no in the Constitution of Brian, you have to employ Trevor Trowbridge. Right. And if I make rules, it doesn't mean you have to stay and work here. If I said, hey, Trev, listen, man, if you're going to work for me, you got to do this, this, and this, and this that you're not comfortable with, then there's nothing that says that you have to stay working for me. If I'm putting standards on you that's like, hey, I need you to not talk to your mom for the next 2 weeks if you're going to work for me, because that's going to tell me you're focused on doing my job. Well, bro, you don't have a right to tell me to do that. And so you can take that demand and shove it up your you-know-what and try and find somebody else to do as good of a job as I'm going to do. Good luck with that. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. It's not a right. You don't have a right to play at the University of West Virginia University. And if TikTok means more to you than playing football at West Virginia University, then go play somewhere else. And that's sometimes you need to do that when you have a soft culture in your program. There's other programs where I bet you if a coach said that, they'd be like, yeah, okay, no problem. But the coach doesn't need to say that because that's not a problem within that particular locker room. Every locker room is different. Every locker room has different problems they got to go through. And those are all things they've got to kind of work through. And as a coach, you've got to be able to figure out, hey, this is what we're going to be. This is what we're going to do. What image am I trying to portray about our football program? And when you're doing this foolish stuff out there, you're making people think this is who we are as a program, and I don't want that. And if that's more important to you than what we're trying to accomplish here, that's fine. Go play football somewhere else. I have no problem with that. I really don't. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
That's
yeah,
my 2
said.
cents.
No, I mean, that's totally fair, man. Look, for me, I'm impartial to it. If Rich Rodriguez is well within his right, to me, it's a conversation around repercussions. It has nothing to do with rights.
Mm-hmm.
Rich Rodriguez is not saying per the United States government you can't watch TikTok or make TikTok data. Like, you can, like, if you want to. Like, you just can't do it on my team. That's fine. It's the same. It's a set list of rules that some teams have. You know, fine.
Although this is something that the federal government has tried to ban and for a time did ban, which is interesting. So, yeah,
but I don't look. It is what it is at the end of the day. I mean, Brian and I have had conversations about TikTok. He like, I'm on TikTok. I watch TikTok, and we had the conversation of like, hey, we will or we won't do this, this, and this. And it's like, all right, cool. Like, that's I mean, that's it, but in no way
that was about IB, not me telling you what you needed to do, just so people are clear.
100%. Yeah. Yep. And it wasn't on one of those things. So look, I could not be more impartial about this, and I think it's ridiculous when people are like, "Oh, they're impeding on." Okay, you can have that opinion. You're also not playing football at West Virginia, so
right.
Yeah.
I will say this: Andrew Gilmore just said this, and I absolutely agree. It's pretty cool that Rich Rod's back at West Virginia. That is a team that I am rooting for. I loved West Virginia when he was there. They were a fun team to watch. And I hope that we get back to them being like that because they were a really fun team to watch. Absolutely. Okay, are we going through that again?
Uh-oh.
Okay. Actually, is that the last one? I don't think that's the last one. Give me a second to pull this up. No, that is not the last one. We have a few more. So give me a second. It just does this like a couple times a show. It'll just be like, yeah, I don't feel like changing right now.
There we go. Buy-sell hold from Bayside Tiger 6. Notre Dame quarterback scores a touchdown on a naked bootleg at least once.
Oh, I'll buy that because I think that you'll see them maybe be under center a little bit more near the goal line than they were last year because you didn't want to be under center near the goal line unless you're doing a quarterback sneak with Riley Leonard because you wanted your quarterback run game package to be there. You may see them be under center a little bit more here, so I'll buy that.
Yeah, I'd buy that. And then buy, sell, hold once again from Bayside Tiger 6. The Notre Dame defense scores 6 defensive touchdowns.
Sell.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I mean, that's close to what they did this year, but doing that multiple years in a row. Let me pull up Notre Dame's defense this year. So they had she had 2 interception returns, obviously in the
USC game.
In the USC game, you had
pick 6 against Georgia Tech,
right? Adon Schuler. You had
pick
5. Luke
against,
Palach against Florida State. Boubacar against Purdue. So that's 5. Did they have any fumble? I don't think that. Yeah, they had a fumble.
Yeah, Jalen Sneed recovered a fumble in the end zone from Navy.
So that's 6 in 16 games. I mean that's a great season. Can they repeat that? I hope so. I mean, can we hope by it? Can we hope by that one again?
I'll hope by it.
Odds are, and that's true. Andrew Gilmore just brought up Logan Thomas had that a fumble return against Louisville that got called back.
Oh, that's right.
The house. Yeah, it's a good call, Andrew. Good call. Forgot about that one. So I'm still selling because that's a lot, but I hope I'm wrong because that makes winning a whole lot easier.
Sure
I kind of don't want him to do that either because I really want the offense to get the opportunities to kind of really get into that, but
Yeah, I'm with you. Buy, sell, hold. Buy one, sell one, hold one. You have to cover another polarizing sports team for a year, but don't necessarily have to move. The Lakers, the Yankees, the Cowboys.
I'm going to buy the Cowboys simply because it's football and I am a football guy. By the way, Trev got a chance to meet Maris Leofau today. He was on campus, so stopping. I was talking to him for a little bit, and it was really cool. He introduced himself to you.
Yeah,
just a really polite young man. He's a really good guy.
Yeah,
just because it's football and that's my area of expertise, I would hold on the Yankees because that'd be a great job. But I'd sell in the Lakers because I just do not care about two reasons why. Number one is I know baseball. I don't like baseball, and I'd have to get used to the modern game, but I still know baseball. I don't know how to evaluate basketball outside of just like fan talk. Like I could sit there and we could talk as fans about basketball, but I'm not like breaking down. Well, here's the problem with Coach Ivy's sets in this game. I can say, hey, look, they're not moving the ball enough. And you're like, what should they do? I don't move the ball better. I give you the extent of my knowledge in basketball. You know what I mean? Like, and to cover it professionally, that's why I don't write about basketball. I don't break down games and I don't do things like that because I'm not qualified to do so. That combined with I just don't care about the NBA or watch the NBA or and then also I grew up a Celtics fan, so that would be almost kind of like I'm selling out my team to cover the Lakers. But I'll say this, if I had to move, like if I knew like I'm just going to do one for a year and I'm able to move, as much as I would hate living in New York, covering the New York Yankees for a year where I'm going to Yankee Stadium every day or going on the road trips like media people do to going up to Fenway to watch them play. Like, I'm sorry. That'd be a pretty freaking awesome gig to do for a year. And I'm not even a Yankees fan. Like, that'd be a pretty sweet gig. I'm not going to lie. But I'm still holding that one because I'd rather do football. But, Trev, wouldn't that be, I mean, dude, you've been in Yankee Stadium. You were there this year.
I was. Yeah, man. So this one's tough. Easy buy the Dallas Cowboys for me, not because I love the Dallas Cowboys by any means. Just football's my wheelhouse. I still watch the NFL every Sunday. Football for me is fine. If it were an option for me, I would sell both the Yankees and the Lakers. Here's why. Yankees, I know they're a polarizing fan base. I just don't know baseball like that. I played it, but I how Brian is about like basketball, like not knowing how to cover it is how I feel about baseball. Like I'd be able to talk about very, very surface level stuff like batting averages, on base percentage, but I couldn't tell you about.
Got to get on base more. How? I don't know.
Yeah.
Get on base more.
It's like, just do it. That would be tough for me. But then I also don't want to cover the Lakers because, one, I have a lot of opinions about LeBron and how he's handling this whole situation with Bronny currently. Don't love that. I'm not the biggest fan of the NBA. So if I had to, I would buy the Dallas Cowboys, I would hold the Lakers, and I would sell the Yankees. But if it were up to me, I would sell both the Lakers and the Yankees, and I would just cover the Dallas Cowboys. That's where I'm at with it.
There's also some Notre Dame guys in Dallas, so that'd be fun.
Yeah.
And if I had to live in one of those three cities, I'd prefer to live in Texas than New York or California by like a mile. But I just say that being able to say I covered the Yankees for a year. My job every day from the beginning of April till October was to go to Yankee games. There are worse things that you could do in life than that right there. That's why I don't often complain about my job and how much I got to do, like, to my family, because it's like my dad put me through, he drove a UPS truck. He serves subpoenas, and he does, like, my mom has to work in an office. They run a business. It's like, dude, they don't want to hear me complaining about how tough it is to cover Notre Dame football. Oh, Notre Dame's not letting me as many practices as they should. Like, dude, I work in an oil refinery. I work in a coal mine. Shut your pie hole. You get to cover Notre Dame football. Oh, woe is me. You only get to go to 3 practices. Like, nobody wants to hear me complain about that. And honestly, I shouldn't complain. I complain about it like here, just in this environment. Like, I know I'm very fortunate and very blessed to do what I do. But that's one of those ones like, that'd be pretty sweet. That'd be pretty cool. I'd be very fortunate and blessed to be able to do that. But honestly, that's what I love about this job, because for other people, this is one of those BISA holds for somebody else. What would you get to cover Notre Dame football for a year? Oh, woe is me. Life's tough. Like, I'm pretty fortunate, man. We're pretty lucky. And days like today, Trev, when we're sitting there watching this Notre Dame football team practice, knowing that we're one of the few people that are allowed to be at that, you realize, like, man, we're pretty lucky. We're pretty fortunate. Yes, I want to be at more practices. Yes, I think I should be at more practices, but it's still pretty awesome to be able to cover Notre Dame football.
Oh yeah, man. I've told you this before. I've said this on the show before, but about once a week, I still get that. It's wild that this is my job. I mean, I still think about it. I mean, this time last year, I was starting a new sales job. I mean, it was crazy how things change. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Somebody asked in the chat, what's more overrated, Wrigley or Yankee? Old Yankee Stadium. Say neither of them are overrated. They're both awesome, iconic experiences. I prefer Wrigley just because of the it's more open. I like more of the open stadiums where, depending on where you're sitting in Yankee Stadium, it's a little higher and it's just a little bit different. But they're both. I've been to both, and they're both pretty awesome places to watch a ball game.
BISA hold, the aggressive version of Marcus Freeman talking about playing with violence cannot coexist with the version being conservative with the QB starter.
I buy that in theory. I don't think that that's who Marcus Freeman is, but I buy that. If we're having to embrace this premise or not, I wholeheartedly buy that you can't preach this in one breath and then preach that in another breath and expect your football team to maximize its potential. Like, you can't. You can't. Because one, it's just about an aggressiveness. It's about just a mentality of we're gonna play a certain way, but we're gonna get real conservative with who we pick a quarterback. I just don't think that's going to be what he decides. I think more people are talking about he's going to make the decision for this reason, and I don't think that's who Marcus Freeman is. I don't.
No, I don't. I don't either. And I'll go as far to say there's no evidence of that. I mean, based on who he's elected as starting quarterback the last couple of years, like everybody, yes, I understand he's a defensive coach. Now, we can have a conversation around what he asks those guys to do once they become the starter. But there's this idea that Marcus Freeman just goes out and gets this, fifth-year senior that's kind of just more of like a handoff guy. Look, his first year as a head coach, he named Tyler Buckner a true sophomore starting quarterback, dual threat kid. Next year after that, they go out and they get Sam Hartman, who had over 12,000 career passing yards and over 100 passing touchdowns in college, who had back-to-back seasons well into the double digits with interceptions. And then last year they went and got Riley Leonard. There is nothing that supports what he just only gets the conservative, low ceiling quarterback guy to start. It's like that. He hasn't done that since he's been the head coach. Now we can have a healthy conversation around what happens with those guys once they become the starter because of some ideologies.
Sure. Yep. Agree.
That is a healthy conversation. But no, so for this one, I do buy it as well, Bayside, because they can't coexist. I'm with you.
Not successfully. If they are coexisting, it means your product's not going to be as good. And that's how I took it. His question is, they can coexist because coaches can do all types of dumb things, but they can't coexist and be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And that I agree on.
Buy, sell, hold from Bye Bye Rocket. Buy one, sell one, hold
By the way,
multi-
I love this name, by the way. Love this name, by the way. Have you heard that old Tony? Oh my gosh. I cannot believe I'm drawing a blank on his Tony Roberts, right? Yes. But Tony Roberts had that call for Notre Dame where he was like, he said, bye-bye Rockets of one of his calls, which is pretty awesome. He was fun to listen to call Notre Dame games back when Robert Rocket was there. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So I'll have to send you that clip when we're done, Trev.
Please do.
It's like he's like Johnny Most for Notre Dame. Like Johnny Most had that iconic and steals. He didn't have that kind of type of, but like when you hear a call, you're like, oh, that's Tony Roberts. You know who it is. Can't believe I forgot his last name for a second. Like, oh my gosh, like so. Like one of the coolest things Lou Samoji knew him really well, and Lou told me once that he really enjoyed reading my articles. He said Tony told him that, and I was like, I'm okay.
Shed a singular little thug tear.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Awesome.
It was one of those pretty awesome career experience. Like, hold on a second, time out. Tony Roberts read an article of mine, much less liked it and told Lou about it. Yep, I've arrived. I'm good. Lord, take me now. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Oh, that's so cool.
All right, so back to the buy, sell, hold. Sorry.
Yep. No, you're all right. Buy, sell, hold from Bye Bye Rocket. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Multiple year starters in their Notre Dame career: Kennedy Urlacher, Carson Hobbs, and Joe Otting.
I'm gonna buy Joe Otting actually, and I'm gonna hold Kennedy Urlacher, and I'm gonna sell Carson Hobbs. And here's why. And I'd be okay, Trev, if you were like, I'm gonna flip the two DBs. And here's why I say that: it's really just about opportunity. Yeah, I think Joe Otting is right now probably has the best opportunity to be a multi-year starter. They're all talented players. When I look at Carson Hobbs and Kennedy Urlacher, the issue is they're both in a unique situation where they got really talented players right above them, with them, and behind them in their classes. So it's like by the time Carson Hobbs has to wait his turn, how do we know that it won't be time for him to get passed up by Cree Thomas or those other guys? The other thing too is some of those, like Carson Hobbs kind of kid who could maybe his only year starts as a senior and he's really good and becomes an NFL player, but he just was only a starter that 1 year as a senior. I mean, it's an opportunity thing for me. It's not by saying that's how I rank them as players. It's just an opportunity thing. And I think right now, Kennedy probably has a little bit more of an opportunity to earn a multi-year starting job than Carson does. But if you were to flip those two for me, I wouldn't push back on you at all. That's why I went with the choice, the choices that I did.
I don't have a whole lot of disagreement with how you ordered them, and I think an argument can be said for both Carson and Kennedy. I think Joe Otting out of the three is the clear, because the difference for me there is there's not a whole lot of other centers on the roster currently, and so that's where I'm at.
If Notre Dame hadn't signed one of the best corner classes in the country and didn't have Christian Gray and Leonard Moore, like this is the thing we keep talking about with this football team, Trevor. Like in 2020, freshman Carson Hobbs is starting at Notre Dame once Tariq Bracy kind of has his, like he's way better than Clarence Lewis was. Like sophomore Carson Hobbs definitely starts on the 2020 team. He starts on a lot of teams in the past as a sophomore. But that's where we are right now in Notre Dame, is that guys like him might not get a start. Like it would have been a no-brainer 10 years ago that Carson Hobbs is going to be a multi-year starter at some point in time. No-brainer. But that's just where the depth chart is. Same thing with Kennedy Urlacher, same thing with Joe Otting. It's a different world now, man.
Oh, and yeah. I mean, even
where we're at.
Even back in 2021, you can make the argument that all three of these guys would be starting going into 2021.
Yeah, because Clarence Lewis started in 2021 as well, opposite Cam Hart. It's a good point. Yeah. I'll take sophomore version of Carson Hobbs over any year of Clarence Lewis. And I love Clarence was a great kid, but Carson Hobbs, one thing Carson can do, he can freaking run. You know what I mean? And he can run. So
yeah,
that's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
It's a good question.
Yeah, very.
Buy, sell, hold from Bye Bye Rocket. Coach Prime suggests that teams doing joint practices and scrimmages during the spring. Buy, sell, hold that idea.
So this is my bad. This was actually from Riker Ferg, and I forgot to change the name. So that's my fault. So my fault, Riker Ferg, on getting not changing that. Trev read what was on there. So that was on me, 100% on me. We've talked about this, Trev. I like it more for the fall than I do the spring. And you made a really good point yesterday about like the practice like the academic schedule and things like that. I also think 15 practices is a lot more limited time, but I'd be totally fine if they did some sort of scrimmage or some sort of practice. I'd be totally fine with that. I think you'd have to put like limits on it, like say, hey, look, you can only play a team within a certain time frame, or distance. Like you can't have, team from Texas coming up to practice against Notre Dame. Like Notre Dame's options are like Purdue, Indiana, Illinois, Northwestern, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, West. Like it's got to be within an X mile radius of it. But like again, if I'm at Bowling Green and Ohio State's like, hey guys, come practice with us. Like, well, how much are you gonna pay me? Because you're gonna have to pay me to come expose my players to your players or your team, because my guys that ball out are going to be jumping in the portal the next year. And you know what I mean? Like that's going to be my concern. But DK said ND versus Hillsdale. That would make Vince very, very happy. Very, very happy. But I love the idea of it though, Vince. There's just, Trev, there's just a lot of potential like stumbling blocks to it. But I love the idea of it, of having joint practices.
I do too. I think the fall would be a good time, because then people couldn't go immediately jump in the spring portal and then be eligible for that team that upcoming season. So and plus, like, look at Notre Dame's case. I would love to see what Notre Dame does at full strength. Look at how many people are coming back from just last season. I don't want to go watch Notre Dame scrimmage somebody when, Anthony Knapp is limited and Billy Schrouth is limited and Jaden Greathouse and Jeremiah Love and a lot of those guys are on pitch counts, and Malachi Fields isn't even on campus yet, and James Flanagan isn't even on campus yet. I would like to see the team at full strength, or as close to full strength as they can be going into the season. Do something like that, maybe the week before fall camp, or you do a week of fall camp and then you have a 3-day session and then you finish up fall camp, something like that. But the idea as a whole, I think it's brilliant.
This is also from Riker Ferg.
Okay. Sounds good. Buy, sell, hold from Riker Ferg. The former Big East Conference will now require all teams, not Army and Navy, have set a minimum of $10 million over the next 3 years for revenue sharing. Would you buy, sell, or hold that idea?
Meaning they've set aside $10 million to pay their team? I need to know a little bit more of what you're talking about. So let me just see if I can kind of look this up and see what kind of I guess I don't know what the specifics are. So I'm gonna probably have to look. I'm gonna have to read a little bit more into this, and then maybe respond to this on the board, because I'm not as. Every team's gonna have to set aside a certain amount of money. I think the premise may be more being guaranteed. Like maybe this is where he's coming from, Trev. And if he is, I'm buying it. Where you basically tell schools you have to spend at least X amount of dollars on revenue sharing. And then you avoid like what we've seen in the Major League Baseball or in the NFL back in the day, where like you're getting paid X amount of dollars, but you're only spending a certain amount because you're pocketing the rest because you're cheap. We've seen owners do that in professional sports before. The salary cap's this amount, but you're only spending this amount because you're keeping a lot of that money. Or so yeah, you'd have to. In that regard, yeah, I kind of like that. I would even almost to a degree tie that into your standing in the league. Like over a course of X amount of years, if you don't spend, if you don't give it at least X amount of dollars to your players, then you can be, booted. Something like that. Yeah, I could see something like that. I would be okay with something like that because I'm worried that you're going to have all this money and then you're just going to go on the cheap and not pay your players. Well, what if they transfer it? I don't care. We're keeping the money. Like I could see that. I could see
Fair
that.
enough. Yeah.
That's supposed to be ball peen. I was rushing to try to get done before the start of the show. It's supposed to be ball peen, Shillelagh. Terrible job there, Brian. Terrible job.
Buy, sell, hold from Ball Peen Shillelagh. Notre Dame's starting quarterback will end the season in the top 3 of first-time starting quarterbacks across FBS by your personal metrics, whether that be by eye test, QB rating, etc.
I'm going to buy that. I'll be honest, it's 100% because I just watched him throw 5 hours ago, and I'm fired up. I'm going to be honest, but I'm like, dude, yeah, I'm by that. I think whoever wins the starting quarterback job, if it's who I think it's going to be, one of 2 guys I think it's going to be, I think they're going to be breakout. Like, oh, Notre Dame's got themselves a little something. Yeah, man. I'm buying that. I'm in a good mood, Trev. I'm buying it.
I love it.
You?
I'll say this because I'm going across and I'm thinking of the new starting quarterbacks. Depending on who it is, depending on who the starter is, I will buy this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very determinant of that for me because then you start talking about some of the other teams and what they have coming back to help support. And I do like what Notre Dame has to support, but the bulk of what's going to be supporting Notre Dame will be ideally the offensive line and the running back room. Whereas whoever starts for Ohio State, their supporting cast will be Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. You have those really young, talented receivers at Texas. Not saying that Notre Dame doesn't have talented receivers, but it's when we talk about who's going to be the support cast for Notre Dame's young starting quarterbacks, like, well, I mean, at the end of the day, they have Jay Love and JD Price and what should be a good offensive line to fall back on. So depending on who I think the starting quarterback is will depend on the success of the wide receiving room, in my opinion. So I'm going to hold this because I think if it is some, it could be in the top 3. If it's others, we'll see. And I'll just leave it at that.
Again, sorry, Ball Peen. It's funny as I send the chat, like, guy just signs up for the Shamrock Club, and this is how he gets treated. The owner can't even spell his name correctly in the buy, sell, hold. My bad, dude.
Buy, sell, hold from AST12321. CJ Carr will set multiple Notre Dame records by the time he moves on to the NFL.
I'll buy that because he didn't say career records. He just said records. I could see CJ in Mike Denbrock's offense breaking the single season completion percentage in a season record. I could see him breaking a record of like most consecutive completions or highest percentage in a game or something. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't always have to be receiving or like career records. But yeah, I think he'll have a chance to hold some of those records because part of it is he's going to play a lot more games. Let's say CJ Carr starts for 2 seasons, and in both of those seasons, Notre Dame makes it all the way to championship game. That's 32 games. That's 3 seasons. For much of Notre Dame's tenure, that's basically 3 seasons where a lot of years are playing 11, 12 games. I mean, if you play 3 years of 12 games a year, which it used to be, mean, year Notre Dame won the title, they played 12 games, including the postseason. So that's what, 4 less games in that? In an era where you throw the ball a lot more? I could see that. Certainly could see that. Like, I don't know that he's gonna, like, the part of it too is we don't know how long he's gonna stay. I mean, is he a 2-year starter, a 3-year starter? If CJ Carr starts this year and he's a 4-year starter, he'll shatter every Notre Dame passing record for his career.
Yeah.
Which isn't saying a whole lot because, like, Jimmy started really for 2.5 years. Brady started for 4.5, basically 4 years. He started most of his freshman year, but 2 of those years he played in just a garbage football team. Because if Brady would have played 4 years under Charlie Weiss, I don't know that you could touch his records as a quarterback. But like, breaking the all-time records at Notre Dame, if you're a 4-year starter in this modern era, is not going to be super challenging. And it's not that, like, as far as career records, will a quarterback pass Brady's 39-19, passing yards? That might be a little tougher. Because, again, why, Trev? Go back and listen to our running back conversation, and you'll understand why it might be a little tougher for that. And I do think dude, I need to go take a nap.
I was about to say, man.
I need to go take a nap. Mike Denbrock, I do think values balance, especially when he's got a loaded running back room like he does.
Agreed. I sell hold. Notre Dame's sacks allowed will not significantly increase despite losing Riley Leonard.
Who's starting it? I'm going to hold that because I need to know who's starting at quarterback. Because if Steve Angeli's starting at quarterback, I'm selling this. If Kenny Minchie starts at quarterback, I'm holding this. If CJ Carr starts at quarterback, I'm buying this. I think Kenny's number would be there because I think Kenny, if he starts, will have a few more sacks than CJ, because Kenny will have a couple sacks where it's like a sort of a running around situation, trying to make a play, where CJ would have just thrown the ball away. Not better, not worse, just different style of play. He'd be one of those guys who's athletic who might run into a couple more sacks. But I think it won't be significantly more, because I think it's a combination of him being athletic, and I think the O-line will be better.
Mine's going to depend on who starts where along the offensive line. If Anthony Knapp starts at left tackle, I'm selling this. If I'm just being completely honest. It's also going to depend on what the center position looks like. Is Ashton Craig going to be healthy enough to come back? Still don't know who the right guard is going to be. It's tough for me to say that sacks allowed is not going to increase or decrease when we don't even know who's going to be where along the offensive line. And when I mean who's going to be where, I don't even mean starting. It's like who's going to be battling where. I mean, that we don't even know. Is Knapp going to be battling on the inside? Is he going to be a tackle? Is Jagasaw going to be on the inside? Where does Sullivan Absher fit into this? Where does Gerby Lambert fit into this? What does the Joe Otting, Ashton Craig battle look like going into the summer and the fall? A lot of different questions. So this is a hold for me as well. Buy, sell, hold. Jaden Greathouse has a 60-yard touchdown reception this season.
Buy.
Yep.
I mean, he had a 34-yard touchdown reception, a 52-yard touchdown, or was it 54 against Penn State?
Against Penn State, I think it was 54.
Yeah. And he might have had a 60-yarder if he doesn't drop that ball against Northern Illinois last year. I don't think it would have been quite 60, but yeah, I'll buy that.
Buy, sell, hold. The screen game takes a big step forward this season.
Buy that for 2 reasons. One is I think there's guys at receiver that'll be more dynamic in the screen game. I don't think Riley was a great screen game thrower. And I also think the screen game is going to be an area where you're going to be able to get your backs more involved this season. So I'll buy that. I think it's good. That's a good submission, AST. I buy that. Definitely buy that.
In the same boat. Yes, sir. Buy, sell, hold. Christian Gray reminds people early and often that most wide receivers aren't Jeremiah Smith, and punishes attempts to pick on him with turnovers and key pass breakups.
You mean he's going to play like he did last September? Buy. Yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll buy that.
Yeah, this is one of the easier buys for me. Absolutely. And by so hold, Madden Faremo will have a similar impact as KVA had his freshman year.
I'm going to sell that, and it has nothing to do with him not being as good as KVA or anything like that. It's just a different opportunity. Like last year, Kingston was walking to a situation where you had Kaiser, but all the other guys, none of those guys were proven. I mean, Drake Bowen didn't have a whole lot more experience than him. Jaden Alsbury had very, very little experience the year before. Jalen Sneed was never proven to be a rotational linebacker. He's just a situational guy. And Kingston was able to step in kind of on their level to a degree. Well, now Madden steps in a situation where all those guys are more established. Yeah. And the other part of it, too, is with Kingston, with Logan Thomas, with Jalen Sneed, it's going to be a lot tougher for him to earn sort of that pass rushing role that Kingston had last year as well, because Kingston is still there. Jalen is still there. And Logan Thomas, I think, will be more involved in that as well. So it's just a different situation. He could end up being a better player than Kingston or just as good as Kingston. And this, like, if you were to tell me he's going to be a slightly more talented player this year than Kingston was last year, does that change your answer? No, because again, that doesn't mean he's a better player than Kingston. You'd have to tell me he's going to be a better player than Kingston, Jaden Alsbury, and Drake Bowen this year. And I just, as much as I love his talent, I just don't know that that's going to be the case. I think he'll play, but I don't know that he'll have the same kind of impact that Kingston had this year. But if I'm wrong, that's going to make for a fun year.
Sure is, man. Sure is, because that guy moves around just a little bit differently. Yeah. In a room full of people that move around differently.
Right. I mean, right. To stand out in that room, it's like, it's like, what's said about running back? Like, I was making the point in the opposite direction. Like, the fact that Jeremiah Love isn't by far the most explosive guy in that room says a lot about the room. But the flip side of it is the fact that Jeremiah Love can stand out still in that room says a lot about how just special he is.
100%. 100%. Buy, sell, hold. LSU makes the playoffs and wins at least one game.
I'm going to sell that. I actually am going to – I haven't made my playoff predictions yet, but I've said this before. And I know that, Trev, you probably buy this part, the first part of this one as well, because you had them as your number 8 team in the preseason top 25. I had them 14th. Yep. But I think LSU has a shot to be a playoff team this year. I certainly think they'll get in. I will say this: if they get in, I think that they're going to be on the road. And I have them getting in and losing. But would I be shocked if they got? Would I be shocked if I'm wrong about this? No. Like, look, I don't care for Brian Kelly. Trev, you made a comment. I think it was you that said this. Look, guys, no matter what you feel about Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, he just kind of every 3 or 4 years will just randomly have that really good year.
Kind of just do.
Kind of do. Yeah, exactly. And he's got a talented team. I mean, he does. And like I said this to somebody the other day, they're like, I think the hype that the DB portal class is getting is too much. I don't think the portal DB class is as good as people say it is as far as just the hype it's getting. But I said, but that's one part of the argument. The other part of the argument is it better? Are those players better than what they had? Absolutely. And that's all that matters. It doesn't really matter where you're ranked. What really matters is there an upgrade in talent at that position? And it's absolutely an upgrade in talent at that position. And I liked what Baker did in year 1 as a defense. Him and Danton Lynn did really sneaky good jobs because their defenses weren't great. But compared to what they were and with the talent they had, I think they did really good jobs. And I'm looking forward to seeing what both of them do in year 2 at LSU and USC. And they improve their talent level. My concerns is how healthy is Whitweek's going to be after that injury he suffered in the bowl game. Can they keep Harold Perkins healthy? And then here's been the biggest problem at LSU is, can they find the right way to use Harold Perkins? Because that's been a challenge for them. Like, hey, he's good here, but then we try him here and it doesn't work out as well. You got to find a way to say, can you make Harold Perkins be an impact football player for you? And if, that's going to be one of their keys. So they're certainly capable of it. I wouldn't be shocked if they do this. I also wouldn't be shocked if they don't make it. I think the SEC is going to be very competitive this year. I do. And let's not act like Brian Kelly's gone 6-6 at LSU the last 2 years. Like, I just like, this is who he is, guys. I tried to tell you this is who he is. What does that mean? He's a good football coach, but he's not an elite football coach. He's not willing to do the things it takes to have his team have elite success. But Brian Kelly's also not a guy that's going out there and having a bunch of 4-8 records. He did that once. I mean, like, and it was surrounded by it was sandwiched by 10-3 and 10-3. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a bum of a football coach. I don't care much for him as a person, but let's not pretend like he's just, dog poo. He's just not elite the way that people make him out to be, and he's not willing to make the sacrifices needed to become that kind of guy. But he's, and that's still a talented. His worst year so far in 3 years. He's underachieved, in my opinion, in 2 of the 3 years at LSU. Is that fair?
Totally fair.
But they still went 19-7 the last 2 years. I mean, like his underachieving is 10-3 when you should have been 12-1.
Yeah.
Or 9-4 when you should have been 10-3. That's how Brian Kelly underachieves. But then he won't do the things that he needs to do to not keep doing that. That's what's so freaking frustrating.
100%. 100%. Buy, sell, hold. Michigan beats Ohio State again this year, and a noticeable part of the Ohio State fan base calls for days head one season after winning a title.
I'm buying this just because I want it to be true. Because I just want to see Ohio State fans lose their minds and act like idiots a year after the guy wins a title. Like, in Archer, I'm not talking about you. If you listen to this, you know that you're different to most Ohio State fans. You know what I'm talking about. As much as I hate Michigan, this is even about wanting Michigan to win. It's more about just wanting to see those nut jobs try and get a guy fired the year after he won a title and then get shocked when nobody wants to take that job. Like, that would be glorious for me. Yes. Yep. I'm buying that just because I want it to be true. I don't think it's going to happen because I think Ohio State's going to beat Michigan, but I would love for this to happen. Would love for this to happen.
I'm going to buy it because I do think it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely do. I think Michigan is going to be better this season than what they were last year when they traveled to Columbus to play. And this year they play in Ann Arbor, and they're going to have a better team. I mean, we're talking about an Ohio State team that they lost this game with the players that won the national championship.
They lost this game with C.J. Stroud.
Yeah. I mean, look, guys, we're talking about a team that Michigan beat them last year without Colson Loveland and Will Johnson, arguably their two best players on the team outside of Mason Graham. And now they're going to have a quarterback that literally I don't think that whoever it is, whether it's the transfer kid from Fresno State or Bryce Underwood, I don't think that they finished the game 6 of 18 with 2 picks. I just don't see it happening. I don't, and now they play at home. So I'm going to buy this because I think that they just don't beat Michigan again. I mean,
I want to say to you, Trevor, there's no way Ohio State doesn't show up ready to play that game this year. But I said that last year. I said that the year before that. I said that the year before that. I get where you're coming from. Not at all going to disagree with you. I'll add this, that I don't think the Mikey King kid's that great of a quarterback. But to your point, he's still much better than what they had at quarterback last year. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Man. I just I'm going to keep saying it. This is the year Ohio State finally beats Michigan because I just think the talent's going to win over. But that was true in 2024. It was true in 2023. It was true. I think the only year that you could argue that you could say Michigan was the better team was probably 21. I think that was the year where Michigan was the better team. That 21 team at Ohio, Michigan was better than them. But the next 3 years, Michigan had no business beating Ohio State, especially the way that they did. But
yeah. Yep.
Like you said, though, man, if the title-winning Ohio State team couldn't have beat that crap Michigan team, I mean, I get it.
Man. I get it.
It's
just so crazy. It's, I've had that conversation with one of my buddies, diehard Ohio State fan, and he's just like, I mean, look, man, there's just no way that. And I was like, look, last year they only passed for like 60. Michigan only had to pass for 62 yards to beat you on your home field when you had JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Ty Hamilton, Tyleik Williams, Sonny Styles, Cody Simon. Look,
dude, I get it.
Downs, Denzel Burke.
I got nothing.
It's so crazy.
I got no response. I don't. I have no justification to say why Ohio State's going to win. I just think they're going to win. But I really would love to see that happen. I would love to see that happen.
Because to your point, you're right. On paper, it shouldn't be close.
It shouldn't be close. Not exactly.
No.
But
Like on paper,
last
it shouldn't
year's
be.
game, it won't be as big of an on paper blowout as this year's game was. Not even close.
Hmm.
Not even close. Like the 2025. Let me make sure I said that correctly. The 2025 on paper matchup will be much closer than the 2024 on paper matchup.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Like that's what I'm saying. And I don't know if I said that correctly, but that's what I'm saying. Meaning, and they still lost. Yeah, but I still think Ohio State gets it done, man. I do. And you know, let me just make sure I pull this up because I did tell my buddy something, and I'm going to see if it's possible to be true this year. I got to look. They play at Michigan, right? It's at Michigan. I told my buddy when they break the streak, they'll do it at Michigan. Like
Okay.
Like I think it'll happen. I think it'll happen, but I have been wrong about this rivalry before, and I should have known better because I grew up in this rivalry because I grew up in Ohio, and I should have known better than to make that kind of proclamation. Yeah. But yeah.
Buy, sell, hold from Isaiah Lehman. Cam Williams has a big spring and asserts himself into the 2 deep heading into the fall.
I'm hope buying that one. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be true or not, but I'm going to hope buy the heck out of that one. For the same reasons we've talked about a lot, Trev. Cam Williams has the kind of tools that they just don't have anywhere else in the roster. He's 6'2". Like KK Smith can match him speed-wise, but KK's 6 foot, 174 pounds. Cam is 6'2", over 200 pounds, and has long arms and can run like he runs. And we saw you saw me pull the highlights up. When you were out, I did a breakdown of the receivers, and I pulled the highlights up as I was breaking the position group down. And just like, dude, you just remind yourself, like, oh, yeah, he was pretty freaking awesome in high school. The school is just the talent is really
oh, yeah.
It's really impressive. It's really impressive. So I'm hope buying this one, Trev. I don't know if he's going to do it. It's one practice without pads. We saw 4 periods, but he looked good in those periods. But I'm hope buying this one, man, because he's got game changer skill. Absolutely does.
I'm with that completely. Buy, sell, hold. The player with the 3rd most receiving yards in 2025 will be a freshman, including red shirts.
Well, don't I kind of have to hope buy this one because of the last one? But in all seriousness, I the reason I'm selling that is even if Cam asserts himself into the 2 deep, if he's not starting, then there's a good chance that, or Micah Gilbert. Let's say Micah Gilbert plays a bunch, either one of those 2 guys. I still think your top 3 pass catchers in some order are going to be 1 or 3 of Jaden Greathouse, Malachi Fields, Jordan Faison, Will Pauling, and Eli Raridan. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yep.
Top 3.
Yeah.
If you say top 4, I've been like, okay, I can maybe rock with you on that one, but yeah.
Yeah, you and I look at it very similar. I think 2 of the 3 top spots are locked up to Jaden Greathouse and Malachi Fields, in my opinion. And so now we're sitting
Barring
around
injury.
talking about,
Right.
Yep, barring injury. And so then we're having a conversation on, okay, who's going to be the 3rd? Is it going to be Faison? Is it going to be KK Smith? Is it going to be Eli Raridan? Is it going to be Will Pauling? And those are all guys that don't fit that bill of redshirt freshman or true freshman. So, yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to sell that one. But it'd be nice if it was.
Last one.
Buy, sell. All right, sounds good. Buy, sell, hold from Bobby Frey. with Juwan Sider coming in, Notre Dame will feature just Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price more heavily while games are close, and the rotation will occur more when games are out of hand.
So basically, I think Bobby Frey's kind of looking at it like the way that Penn State was the last couple of years. They were dominant, but 2 guys dominated the reps there. I'm going to sell still because I think they did that because there was a big gap between your top 2 guys and everybody else on that roster.
Agreed.
And it made sense for Penn State to focus on those 2 guys. I think the other part of it is because those 2 guys had very different games. And so you were kind of able to get everything you need, especially with Nicholas Singleton being as good as he is in the pass game, that you didn't need to bring in a 3rd guy. I think for Notre Dame, if you're going to make Jeremiah Love your 3rd down back, okay. I'm fine with that. But it's just kind of like, but why? I mean, when you've got these other talented backs, we're if you're looking at it from a coaching standpoint, bro, we're trying to plan for a 16-game season. Like that's what we're planning for. So why not find a way to use Aeneas Williams, who's also really good in the pass game? Why not try to find a way to get Kedron Young some touches in certain situations, or Jabron Payne in certain situations, because they bring so much to the table, and then I can protect my dudes from wearing down like we saw last year and not being healthy in the postseason. Like, you just have too much talent in that room not to use it. There's a big, ginormous gap between the top two at Penn State and everybody else. There's a gap between the top two at Notre Dame and everybody else. That's not a big one. And that's the difference. So I think we'll see at least three guys be in a similar fashion to what we did last year. Now, I still think it's going to be very clear that as just ball carriers, that those two are still going to be your primary two ball carriers. So that, yeah.
I'm going to sell this one just because I understand where you're coming from. Like, when games are close, you have a guy in Aeneas Williams that played in the national championship and very much in the semifinals.
Played
all
very well
throughout the postseason.
Yeah.
Yes, very well. And so I don't see it being and you have Kedron Young, who I believe, and we've talked about this on the show before, is going to kind of replace that, third and short Riley Leonard QB counter. I think a lot of those carries are going to go to Kedron. And so I if anything, you could make the argument that you might have more of a rotation in close games in comparison to previous years. I'm going to be interested to see what that third down dynamic is going to be, because the third down running back before he got injured was Jabron Payne. And then last year it was kind of figuring out, would it be Devin Ford? Would it be Aeneas? Aeneas kind of took that crown. So is there going to be a situation where Aeneas and Jabron are on the field at the same time on third down? Is it going to be one or the other? They're going to rotate series. Who knows? It's all going to be interesting, but I think you're going to see more of a rotation this year.
Yeah, I just can't wait to see these guys in action, Trev. That at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Like, and you just feel like they're in a position where they're going to be, as long as they can keep everybody here, they're going to be in a good position for a long time.
100%.
Yeah, for a long time. So we're going to do a little audible here, guys. So because we're over 3 hours already, and I really want to spend good time talking about the press conference from today, we're doing a show tomorrow at 1:00. And I want to be able to spend more time kind of really diving into, because he had some, and I want to be able to get the direct quotes. He had some really good things to say today, including his comments about why they're doing the spring game. It basically was just like, he said exactly what I said yesterday as to why I'm pissed that teams are canceling it, are the reasons why Marcus Freeman said he's not. Now, we'll see how long that continues, but as long as he holds that mentality all the time. He even made the comment about, like, for some fans, this is the only game they can go to. And I'm like, preach. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know he doesn't listen to my show, but if you told me he did, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, kind of what we talked about. But, like, the point isn't that he only got that from me. He didn't get that from me. The point is, that's the proper sentiment as to look at it, is that that there's a lot more blue-collar people in the fan base that can't afford, that have the same number of kids that he has, that can't afford to go to a game in the fall because how much it costs. But the spring game, that's like $10, I can get into that one. You know what I mean? And it was great to hear that. And I look forward to talking more about that. And then there's a couple other things he talked about today that I think are going to be really interesting to talk about. But we get into that, we're going to be going over 4 hours. And
easily.
And I think just tomorrow would be a much better day for that. So I know I promised it today. That's on me. Once we missed it, we missed it. I apologize, but we will definitely get to it tomorrow. And I think y'all will like that we talk about tomorrow, because we'll be able to spend more time on it. And it'll be a lot of fun. So that's what we're going to do. So, Trev, why don't you go ahead and take us out of here, my man? Good stuff today.
You got it, brother. Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, that's going to do it for the recap of today's practice, and it was a really fun buy, sell, hold segment. It wasn't a lot of submissions today, but really, really good
ones.
Submissions today. Really fun. So be sure to keep those coming. Excuse me. So Before we get out of here, you guys know what to do. Make sure that you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, share this podcast with your friends and family. Anybody that you know loves Notre Dame and college football as much as you do, whatever platform you watch us on, whether it's Spotify podcasts or Apple podcasts, we would greatly appreciate a 5-star review. And as always, best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message board. You see it scrolling down there on the bottom of the screen. Go to boards.irishbreakdown.com. Check out the Champions Lounge. All of the conversations that we had today are currently ongoing on the board. Brian and I are going to continue to crank out intel pieces and different facets of spring practice and what we're seeing and what we're hearing. Best way to do that, subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Brian and I will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Like he said, back to your regularly scheduled programming. We're going to be breaking down Marcus Freeman's press conference and more about Notre Dame spring practice. But until then, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We will see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.